You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
The kick, it's been blocked again! Oh my! It's been blocked again! It's going to heave one deep down the field. It's going to be to the goal line. It's going to be gone! It's a touchdown! And the Gators have won the game! Tyree Cleveland! Oh my! I can't believe what I just saw! Dropping back to throw. Thompson fires the ball over the middle. It's scoring! It's scoring! Got a touchdown! Scoring! Got a touchdown! Oh my! Norwich got a touchdown!
Ahmad Black, in his final game as a Gator, takes it all the way home and sends Urban out a winner.
You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Stadium and Gale. It's your favorite Uncle Silk.
It's Dan.
It's the Thompson search firm.
It's the Thompson search. In fact, it's the top Dan and Gator Nation again.
Wow, the top Dan, the top dog in Gator Nation, Dan Thompson. It's Delatory Silk. I couldn't help but hear an uptick in your voice in the intro.
Man, it's beautiful times, beautiful times. Unfortunately, we gather here today with a new coach on the horizon and one coach leaving, man. How you feeling, Dan?
What's that meme where the guy's like smiling and it's like just came to the funeral to make sure he's dead? I feel like that's Silk.
Yeah. That's my meme. That's me. He is I and I am him.
That's the exact meme that I was actually thinking of when Silk was talking. Completely unplanned there, Nick. Silk, to answer your question, I think it was something that we talked about. I had mentioned on this show that I had heard last week that if Dan Mullen lost another game, one of the last two games, that he would be out. It's sad to say that a guy that I thought 3.5 years ago was a guy that not necessarily would be the coach that would return the Gators to extreme prominence all the time, but was a coach that I thought would be here for quite some time and had some success, is out. But here we find ourselves.
Just like a spectacular downfall. Like there's one thing you could point to at Jim McElwain, like, yo, don't make up that people are trying to kill you. That'll get you fired.
Don't hump sharks.
You can't really point to one thing with Dan. So it's kind of like we were talking about it in the press box in Missouri and trying to figure out like what is it? And you really have to like sit down and like add everything up to really see how you fall from grace in just 13 months so quickly to the point where you're not even. I guess you were offered. We can talk about that too. To the point where you're not even finishing out your fourth season after going to 3 New Year's Six games.
I tweeted something similar to that, Nick. I had tweeted that McElwain had the credit cards scam that kind of did him in.
Come on, no need to bring that back up. That's a rough time for me.
Yeah, I know. Champ had the injury gate. Well, a lot of players got injured that year. That got him the 4 wins. I don't know what happened outside of incompetence with Dan Mullen. Outside of him just not wanting that job is what I could gather. I don't want to get into like deep breakdowns of what went wrong. Mm-hmm. But generally, I think he just didn't give a shit. I think he just wanted out.
Yeah, we're going to have Andy Staples on here any second now. There he is. He's just going to pop in here in a second. But I think a lot of it had to do with organization. I think a lot of it had to do with a number of issues just really kind of compounding. That was issues in organization, issues in recruiting, issues in staff retention, issues with players that you compound those enough and you have enough issues where you start to lose favor and all of a sudden the noise gets loud and you find yourself $12 million richer. But before we bring Andy on, Silk, you're on mute, but before we get Andy on.
I said 6. Yeah.
Well, yeah, 6 plus. Yeah. However, it ends up setting
best job in the universe. Fired college football coach.
It's not bad. It's not bad. But before we bring Andy from the Athletic on, Silk, give a quick shout out to Greg Brunt, and we'll get on with the show.
This Gator Stadium and Gale episode is brought to you by the great folks at Brown Insurance and Financial Services. Anything you need insured, from the Panhandle to the Keys, my man Greg is the best of the best. Auto, home, life insurance, business insurance, renters insurance, motorcycle, trailer, anything that got wheels, we can insure it. 954-589-2204 or browninsurance.com. Andy Staples. What's up, Andy? How you doing, man? You all
What's
right?
up, Silk? We're the only ones without
Disappointed.
backward hats. I can go get a hat if we need.
No, I need you to put that jersey back on and find a helmet. You're blocking for Scott Strickland. To what degree
No.
of success, we don't know.
As we learned from Scott Strickland, nobody wants me blocking for him, so that's all right. But you're back from Missouri, Nick? I didn't think you were going to make it.
Yeah, I was writing stories on my phone on I-70, I think it is. Listening to the loudest Christmas music I've ever heard in a Starbucks while trying to do Scott Strickland's press conference.
It's fantastic.
But better than Matt Baker, who was in seat 17A, 30,000 feet in the air on Southwest.
I did enjoy
Wi-Fi.
him. Yeah, him saying essentially, I need the first question because they're going to make me turn my phone off or kick me off the plane.
Yeah.
Normally I don't like people Bigfooting in a press conference, but I got that one. That was fine.
Yeah.
A nice little subtle flex. As somebody that's flown on many a Southwest flight, I'm surprised that internet worked enough to bring that. But Andy, we were talking about it right before you hopped on. Certainly something that you and I have talked privately about, but this kind of fall from grace for Dan Mullen is probably one of the most spectacular, and the quickness that it happened from the Gators, a year ago at this point, being, on their way to the SEC championship with a Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback and Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney, changes potentially afoot, but they don't get made. But Andy, what happened in the last year from your perspective, and how did it happen and end so quickly?
I think it's what didn't happen over the last 3 years, because y'all know, y'all follow recruiting. If you come in blazing on the recruiting trail, if you get hired in 2017, you're already working on the class of 2020. You're already working on the class of 2021. You're working on the class of 2022, in year 2, in year 3. If they're sitting there with a top 5 class right now, Dan Mullen doesn't get fired. But what happened was they fell off a cliff on the field, and there was nothing to look forward to off the field. So all you were going to look forward to was an entire offseason of dead man walking, and there's nothing you can do about that. There's no way to salvage that at that point. And I think that's the problem. And it wasn't even the loss to Georgia in the way it happened, because look, they're the best team in the country. You lose to Georgia this year, there's no shame in that. It's what happened afterward. It's the team wouldn't play for him, and players started getting flipped. Humphrey gets flipped from Florida to Georgia. It's a little too on the nose, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
Georgia, Florida's class is now worse than the SEC. That's going to happen after a firing. But
I bet it won't be. They'll hire somebody, and
no doubt
that person will have some people in pocket, and it'll be fine. It won't be great, but it'll be fine.
Eric Taylor will turn this recruiting around.
Who the hell
He's going to bring in Voodoo.
That's from Friday Night Lights, Silk.
Oh,
Friday Night Lights.
Silk was caught
He was
completely
also
off
the
guard.
lead in that
Boy,
show
I
that
was
was
like-
filmed in Isla Morada. What was that? Bloodlines?
Bloodline.
That was pretty
Bloodline.
good.
Yeah, that was really good.
thought you had somebody's off of Andy's board that I didn't know about, man. My bad.
breaking
I should have put Coach
news.
Taylor on the big board.
That's right. You should have.
Coach Taylor needs to be number 1 on every big board.
His odds of getting the job are probably better than
I don't know.
Tua's odds.
He's one that would take a job and just leave. That's the problem. Didn't he take the Texas Western job or whatever and bail after like a weekend?
You got to go where your heart needs you, where your heart wants to be.
East Dillon?
Yeah. I think,
Looks like I don't watch this stupid show.
No, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Silk's been making his "Scared Money Don't Make Money" T-shirts all afternoon. So.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I think
to be honest.
on the recruiting note, it's obviously what Kirby's doing. I think Kirby censored himself after the Florida Georgia game because he could have just said, Dan, you can't out scheme players, you can't out coach players. I think he was talking directly to him. But not only
he wasn't talking to him, Nick. He was talking to anybody who might consider playing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good
ABC, always be recruiting.
Right. Yeah. But what Kirby's doing and what Dan was doing was not only out recruiting Florida, but he was furthering the distance and the opportunity that Florida has to compete with Georgia and therefore to compete for a national championship. So like what you said, Andy, if Florida had the number 5 recruiting class, hey, there's a future. There's a bright future.
There's
I
hope.
think when you look, there's hope.
Right.
There's something. I think when you look at Dan, I think the discipline in the program started to fall, and maybe some of that's COVID. There was a lot of stuff that happened last year. I think the discipline, the accountability, the attention to detail inside the program from top to bottom had started to slip. I don't think they ever were going to get recruiting turned around. And the other teams, you could be the 10th best recruiting class in the country and 5th in the conference, and that's not going to be good enough.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the part that people have to understand. And it's interesting because nationally, I get this all the time. I get people, well, how could they fire Dan Mullen? Don't they know he went to 3 straight New Year's Six bowls? Yeah, great. But if the distance between you and the place you want to be is 10 miles wide now, you got to figure out how to get back where you want to be. And you'll get a lot of, but you can't expect to win the national title every year. Yes, but you can expect to try. Mm-hmm. And if you're Florida, if you're Auburn, if you're LSU, if you're Texas A&M, if you're Alabama, if you're Georgia, you expect to try. And if it doesn't feel like you're trying, then you do something else. And I know people, like I try to explain this to people. The Ricky Bobby thing, that if he ain't first, you're last, it's played as a joke in the movie. That is the attitude at half the programs in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And if you're not moving toward winning an SEC or a national title, or you're not winning an SEC or a national title, you're just spinning your wheels. So you have to be doing that, or you will not satisfy the customers. And I mean, that's the thing. People in my business, it drives me nuts. People in my business are always like, well, you guys shouldn't feel that way. Don't tell them how to feel. Don't tell. If I like, let's say, well, if I like Popeyes better than KFC, don't tell me you should like KFC better. It's not better. I like Popeyes. I'm going to buy Popeyes.
I don't eat chicken.
You'd be insane to feel any differently. But no, I mean, that's
I don't
the thing,
know,
like,
man.
Kentucky's
original. Kentucky's original. I would have took over in my chicken eating days. I would have took over Popeyes. Popeyes is a little greasy,
secret blend of herbs and spices.
I don't know. I'd take Popeyes.
Popeyes have tofu.
I've eaten a lot of fried chicken. I might take Church's over KFC.
Whoa.
Church's is real. If you're talking grease, now Church's is grease.
That's some grease.
Church's is very greasy. Bojangles, I'd probably take them over KFC too. I mean, if we have to, right? But you know what
I would take
is
Publix
just behind
them,
Popeyes.
I'm not eating chicken.
Publix.
Gator
fried chicken.
Gator Twitter is going to dissect this tomorrow and try to figure out which coach is which chicken franchise and figure out which one you're going.
Nick, Billy Napier lives in the only town where there's a Popeyes buffet. I think we got this one wrapped up.
Oh, I see what you're getting at,
exactly what
Andy.
you want them to think, Andy. That's what you want them to think. Classic smoke screen.
Yeah,
I'm calling the feds if I see a buffet at a Popeyes. What do you contribute, Andy? Real quick, what do you contribute this season to? Because like Dan Mullen, I think is a good X and O guy and a competent coach. To me, it just looked a little checked out this year. After getting the NFL, or what seeming to look like he wanted an NFL job, it just seemed like he didn't want to be there this year. What do you think?
I got the same sense. And here's the thing about that NFL thing. I went back and looked at the original piece of information. I had forgotten what it was. It was one of those Adam Schefter tweets from ESPN PR. It's like 33 things in 30 seconds from Adam Schefter, and it was the third thing in 30 seconds. And based on, because at The Athletic, we have people who cover everything. We have beat writers.
It was 13 words that ruined a month for me.
Yeah.
Whole month.
So we have people who cover every NFL team. There was no NFL team interested in Dan Mullen last year. That came from someone representing Dan Mullen. I don't know exactly who. I mean, it could have been his agent, could have been him, could have been somebody else representing him. But it came from somebody like that, which should lead us to believe that, hey, he wanted an NFL job. That's great. But you still have to keep trying at your college job if you want to get an NFL job. And, this was a year of great change in college football. The transfer rules changing. You had the NIL stuff. So if you liked the way things were before and you didn't want to do it in the new world, well, the NFL probably seemed like a pretty cool place to be. But again, you had to succeed this year to get the actual interest from the NFL. And it seemed like that step kind of was missing there.
I'm of the opinion that Dan had finished 3 years of his first 6, so you don't want your head coach to be on less than 4. He had spent most of 2020 putting his foot in his mouth and punting his leverage in contract negotiations
and getting show clauses.
And it's a quick text to Schefter, who thinks, hey, that's a good scoop. I'll say it real quick on this 30-second blurb, and now all of a sudden you've got your leverage back. I don't think. And like I've said many times.
But he never had any leverage. No one in the administration at UF believed that.
Which is why
they knew it was a bluff all along.
Which is why I think you're able to, if you're Scott Strickland, to keep the buyout what it was to save. A lot of Florida fans have been mad about the money Dan's getting. If Jimbo gets fired at Texas A&M, he gets $95.2 million.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I mean, Gus Malzahn got $20.5 million. What they did.
Florida's contract was very school friendly.
Oh, absolutely. And it worked against Dan Mullen this year because the fact that it didn't go down next year, like that's what some coaches can hang on to is their buyout so high, and then next year it's much lower, and maybe that helps the school make the decision to keep them. There was nothing to help him stay. The contract became his worst enemy at that point.
And I've kind of backed off on this a little bit because I thought at the time when Dan was coaching, when I thought he was coaching for his job, Florida had 6 assistant coaches coming off the books this year on expiring contracts. 2 of them were Hevesy and Grantham. And I thought, hey, it's almost financially responsible because if you keep Dan, it's a dead man walking. You're going to have to pay guys either above market value or give them a 3rd year. And now you have to fire all of them next year if you're at the same place with Dan. Dan's buyout is going to be the same if you fire him now or in 2024.
Yep. It was a perfect storm
to
get him out of there now.
How long do you think the firing actually went down this weekend, or do you think our staff was actually looking beforehand? Because to be honest with you, it seemed here's my take. In hindsight, I don't think he fired Hevesy and Grantham.
So I would say I don't know exactly when I know I heard what Scott Strickland said. I don't know exactly when the decision to fire Dan Mullen came, but I would say if Scott Strickland was being a responsible athletic director, that after the South Carolina game, he began putting out feelers. Okay, who might be interested if this job were to open? What might it take to get them? Who can I cross off my list immediately? And who should I think about maybe putting on my list? That is the sort of thing, because some ADs do that constantly. Some ADs are always updating that list in their head. Scott's never really been one of those guys. And I don't think he may have had kind of a, if in case of emergency break glass kind of list going on. But I mean, if you think about it, going into this year, there's no reason to even have any inkling that you'd have to fire Dan Mullen. So you're just not thinking that way. And I think after the South Carolina game, you realize, all right, I have to think that way, because you had the decommitments, you had getting your butt kicked by Georgia, you had the recruiting answer, which again, a lot of people took it differently than he meant it. But the thing is, all of us here know exactly what he meant. What he meant was, please don't ask me about this. This subject is very sensitive to me. Not, I'm not recruiting. We know he's recruiting year round. I mean, I've watched the man walk out of his walk out of a ballet recital because he had to take a call from a recruit or go see a recruit. So it's not like he wasn't trying to recruit. It's that he was not succeeding in the way that you have to as the $7.5 million a year coach at Florida. And that was a very sensitive topic. And that just sort of, and then the performance against South Carolina, that's a team that had gained 15 yards in 3 quarters against Texas A&M the week before. And you lose 40-17. You were never even competitive in a game against a team that should have been an easy win. And after that, I'm pretty sure if we're talking just basic responsible ADing, that's when you start looking.
Yeah, I think
and then probably the first half at Samford, if you were leaning that way, you're like, okay, this like moves might have to be made. You might want to make them after the season, but then you go up and you lose to Missouri, and you think, okay, well, just do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting back to what Silk said, I think the Hevesy Grantham thing, that was, and I wrote this at the time, that was throwing your sacrifices into the volcano, hoping it's going to rain tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Thinking, okay, this will shut them up for a little while, and maybe they get back to play. Because here's the thing. If Florida had played something like what Florida looked like in Dan Mullen's first 3 seasons, at any point in the last 3 weeks, he still keeps his job. But you can't look like they've looked. Mm-hmm. You just can't. And then imagine if you play like that against a Florida State team that nobody's paying attention to, mm-hmm. that seemingly gets better every week, mm-hmm. that has some hope in recruiting. It's interesting because the Florida and FSU classes pre-Dan Mullen firing didn't look all that different except at the very top where FSU mm-hmm. has the number 1 overall recruit in the country, another top 50 recruit, and then a quarterback in the top 100. So mm-hmm. other than that, the classes looked similar, but they have a lot more reason for hope. So imagine if Dan were still the coach and they decided not to do anything, and Florida State beats Florida where the winner gets a bowl berth and the loser stays home. I mean, you talk about a bad trajectory game. That's the worst trajectory game there is.
Andy, I want to ask you a question about recruiting, and I know we kind of moved off of it a little bit, but going back just about Dan Mullen, was it just a lack of tenacity? Was it just a not a huge pressure, that he put on other coaches? Was it a lack of being able to close and really nail recruits in, or what was it? I mean, because, I've worked around Dan Mullen for 3 years when he was at UF, and, I saw a guy that obviously worked hard. I know a lot of the staff that works hard, especially support staff, but what was it that really could never seem to come together recruiting wise at Florida under Dan Mullen?
I think there's a few things. I don't think they have the same kind of recruiting infrastructure that Georgia and Alabama have. They're working their way there. They've been definitely, probably since the Muschamp era, they've been working on that. But they don't spend the same amount of money. You need to spend that kind of money. They have an interesting, they don't seem to have a coherent philosophy about who you're going to hit hard. And, everybody says, oh, put a fence around the state. That's a very 1994 way of thinking of things. You don't put a fence. You have to put a fence around the whole country. You put a fence around the top 50, which is what Kirby Smart's done, what Ryan Day's done, what Nick Saban's done. Remember, we're in an era when the best players all meet each other, know each other, befriend one another as 10th graders. And they want to play together. So it's not anymore where you have to get Chris Rainey so you could get the Pounceys because they all play together and, they're hanging out all the time. The player you want from Miami, his best friend may live in Houston, and he may be a top 10 player from Houston, and you got to figure out how to get him too. I look at Georgia, and I keep bringing this up. Georgia's 2 tight ends that are playing. Now they have a third who's one of the best in the country, who's from Georgia, who just isn't on the, isn't playing right now, Eric Gilbert. But the 2 guys who play, Washington and Bowers, are from Las Vegas and Napa, California. Their best young DB is Keely Ringo. He is from Scottsdale, Arizona. Like, they just go get the guys where they are. And Florida's got to try to go get all those guys, and that costs money. You can't skimp on that. You can't say we live in a state of 21 million people and there are plenty of good football players to go around here. You know what? There's really a bunch of good football players to go around in Georgia too. That doesn't stop Georgia from trying to get the best ones wherever they are. And that's what you have to do, because that's what LSU is going to do. That's what Texas. Look at Texas A&M. This is a fun little game. Look at a Texas A&M depth chart from 2010 and look at a Texas A&M depth chart from 2021. The one in 2010, there might be one out-of-state guy in the 2 deep. They're all over the place now. Why? Because Jimbo Fisher got hired to win a national title.
They pay him in Egyptian gold to do it.
They pay him in every country's gold. You got to pull from everywhere to get that much gold.
They playing with big boy money, man.
They pay him in Bitcoin. Andy, I think I read something that you said about this. I wanted to ask you because I thought we were talking about expectations earlier, and I thought Muschamp didn't live up to them. McElwain didn't understand them. He didn't you hired me to win SEC championships, and I put the SEC East championship banners up. What do you don't like those either? He didn't understand.
It's not enough for you people.
Yeah. I thought when Dan came, and I think you probably shared this too. Leaving.
He said it, Nick. He said it at the press conference.
He was the offensive coordinator for the team that they weren't the only reason that the expectations are there, but a large reason of why the expectations are what they are at Florida. I thought if anybody in the country, other than Urban Meyer or maybe Steve Spurrier, who by the way said 10 wins isn't good enough here anymore when he was on the way out, would know the expectations. Do you think he just couldn't live up to them? I felt this season, as the losses started to rack up and recruiting was going wrong, I felt like he was starting to crack a little bit.
Well, I don't think most people could live up to the expectations at Florida. I think you have to be a different kind of person. It's hard. It's a hard job. The demands are very high. And if you're not moving toward those demands all the time, you're going to get killed. And that's what I think happened. And I think he knew what the expectation. I mean, think about this. Who took more criticism in 2005, their first year here, than Dan Mullen? Dan Mullen got crushed over and over and over. So if anybody knew how nasty Florida people can get when things aren't going the way that they want them to go, it should have been Dan Mullen. Like, he should have seen this coming.
Or Steve Ozio.
Yeah, exactly.
Some years later.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that's the part that I couldn't understand. If you knew it was going to be like this and you were not prepared for this, then why did you take this job? You could have, because Dan Mullen could have had other jobs. Now, Tennessee was one of those, and Tennessee's kind of the same animal. It gets really nasty there too. But there were other jobs that because he was so successful at Mississippi State, he could have gone to a bunch of different places. And there were other jobs that it wouldn't have been like that. And so that's the part I think that I find very interesting, because I just assume when he said, I've been here before, I know what's expected, he meant that.
And I've got a working theory here for this coaching search. Everyone talks about the money, the boosters, the board of trustees getting involved, and at some schools that's a real reality. Scott Strickland said it's not.
That was code from Strickland, by the way, for this is not the Auburn or the LSU job. I will translate that for you right now.
For a specific coach that he might have been speaking to directly, if he caught that.
A coach that was courted by Auburn last year and who could potentially be an LSU candidate this year. Yes, I think you may be right.
Before real quick, Nick, before we get into like the hiring, real quick, we seem to like go sour with coaches, and like relationship seems to go sour once they're on campus. What do you think that comes from? Like, it just seems to always be some rift between administration and the coach at some point in every tenure. Even Urban Meyer's.
Well, a lot of that is not getting, like with Urban, it was not getting what he felt like were the resources that he wanted. He felt like he had to come in and beg for everything. And so that was an issue. And a lot of it was Steve Spurrier would make fun of the other coaches and say, well, they got these fancy indoor facilities and all this stuff. And we don't need that to win at Florida. And Jeremy Foley believed him when he said that. So Florida fell behind as far as that stuff goes. But they started to work on making that up kind of in the Muschamp era, but slowly but surely. McElwain basically declared war on the administration after the Outback Bowl. He's sitting there in the press conference saying, well, maybe they'll get serious about football. When Scott Strickland is standing there,
all knowing
having just negotiated a raise for the man. Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah.
McElwain woke up and chose violence after the Outback Bowl.
Yeah. Now, Dan didn't do that. I thought Dan was as complimentary as he could be, given the fact that they're still behind. Now they're trying to catch up, but they're still behind, and that's not Dan's fault. In fact, he was helping them raise money to get where they need to be. So I thought he handled that part fine. I think with Dan, it was just a lot of the way he handled losses, and it was always something where it was Texas A&M let too many people into the stadium, or we outgained Kentucky, or you name it. There was always something, and there doesn't need to be something. I mean, look, when Steve Spurrier lost, he's like, we lost. It's okay. You can do that, and then gaslighting everybody. And I think it was probably already done, the diet and cast at this point, but gaslighting everybody after the Samford game, trying to make them think that they saw something amazing when they saw Florida give up 52 points to Samford, was particularly insulting, I think, to the fan base.
Going back to the Scott thing, I'm kind of the opinion that I don't know if President Fox will be at Florida past this contract.
Well, he's at an at-will contract. Just point of clarification. He's at will. He could leave whenever. Okay.
That could be tomorrow. Who knows? Mm-hmm. That could be in 2074. Medicine has gone a long way. I'm of the opinion that you're going to get a new president at some point, certainly by the time that you'll know if this coaching hire is good or bad. Florida will probably have a new president. I'm of the opinion that you need to let Scott Strickland make this decision on his own. With everything that's gone on with Scott in women's basketball, Dan flaming out.
Well, who do you think is going to make it other than him? That when he said that about not meddling, he wasn't lying. There is no Bobby Louder or Jimmy Rain at Florida. There just isn't. There are guys who have names on stuff, but historically they've not been people who have said, go do this or hire this guy or you need to run this out. They just aren't like that.
So then I was thinking this is the hire for his job. If in 3 years, 4 years, we're sitting here talking about chasing planes in Ocala, it's going to be with a new AD.
If you're an SEC AD, if you're an SEC AD, your second football hire is for your job. Mm-hmm. Always. That's just a general rule of thumb. Unless you stay forever, that's pretty much the only way, because
that's the only thing that can get him fired right now.
It's not the only thing. I mean, you have another scandal, you could probably get fired, but I would say that the university at large is probably dealing with a little bit bigger fish to fry with the expert witness thing that's going on. And I know that's a little outside the sphere, and I'm not trying to get political or anything. I'm just saying, if you're a university president, that is a much bigger deal. It's sort of like, how we always wonder when anything ever happens involving a football program, how it's going to affect recruiting. That's a thing that might affect recruiting, except at the university level. So that's something that they're not as worried about sports right now, I don't think. They're going to let sports do its thing.
And you're not necessarily saying that in a bad way. You're just saying that Florida has.
No, I'm just saying that's how things work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how things work. And if you're Scott Strickland, you're happy about that, because you don't want your president, your board of trustees necessarily breathing down your neck. Now, when Bernie Matchett was the president of Florida, he had very distinct ideas about what athletics should be and how it should be run, and he and Jeremy would talk pretty frequently about that. Kent Fox is a different kind of president. He is not very hands-on with athletics. And so if you're Scott, that's good and bad, because it's good in that they trust you. You can go do what you want to do, hire the person you want to hire, vote your conscience. It's bad in that if you screw it up, you're gone too. You have no one to blame but yourself if you mess up.
Andy, I want to, in the last couple minutes here, I want to dive in to some candidates. Obviously, there's a lot of big names that have floated around, for this position. Lane Kiffin, Billy Napier. The list goes on and on and on. I mean, we could go all the way down the list, but Bet Online earlier today and a lot of the Vegas sports books earlier today had Billy Napier as the odds-on favorite, about 9-2 odds to be the head coach of the Florida Gators next. Bet Online, not long before you joined the show today, completely took their odds down about who the next Gators coach is going to be. That could mean one thing, it could mean nothing, but I think all of us kind of have a prevailing thought here. Do want to get your thoughts on Billy Napier, the coach, the guy that was a coach at Clemson, coach at Alabama, has been at University of Louisiana Lafayette for the last few years now. What are your thoughts and what have you heard about him?
He's a very good coach. I mean, there's if you want to read all about him, Brody Miller, who I work with at The Athletic, he's our LSU beat writer. He drove over to Lafayette a few weeks ago and did a massive story on Billy Napier, kind of the whole kit and caboodle. It's very interesting because his career is fascinating. He was one of the first coaches to go through the Nick Saban School for Wayward Coaches, basically. And what happened with Billy Napier is, so you got to go back to Tommy Bowden getting fired at Clemson, because Dabo is the receivers coach. Billy Napier is, I believe, the running backs coach at the time. And so Dabo gets the interim job. His first official act as Clemson's interim coach is fire Rob Spence, who's the offensive coordinator. So he moves Billy Napier into the play calling role. And I want to say Billy was like 29 at the time, 28, 29. So big job. Damn. Might not have been ready for it.
Yeah, he was definitely the youngest offensive coordinator in the country.
Youngest play caller in the country. And they just fired the head coach. So you were going to be on a pretty short leash at that point. And basically Dabo ended up having to fire Billy Napier to save himself. He hires Chad Morris. That offense changes. Everything kind of goes. But you can't really hold that over Billy Napier's head because of the situation he was thrown into. And what he did afterward was goes to Alabama, becomes an analyst, works his way through that system, goes from off-field guy to receivers coach, becomes one of their better recruiters, better position coaches, gets the OC job at Arizona State, shows himself to be a pretty good play caller there. And in fact, when Herm Edwards got hired, the idea was they really liked the coordinators. They liked Billy Napier. They liked Phil Bennett. And the idea was that Herm was just going to GM the thing and they were going to run it. But Billy Napier gets that job at Louisiana Lafayette and he's gone. And he had one kind of rebuilding year there right when he got hired. And then they've been good ever since. So he's a pretty aggressive recruiter. He's not a warm and fuzzy, going to light you up in the press conference kind of coach. But I don't think that's what they're looking for this time. I think they are going full on, find some guy who will compete with Kirby Smart, who will compete with Nick Saban on the recruiting trail, because that's really the only way you get what you want.
Do you think he is that guy? I mean, what you know about him, or?
I mean, he's been in that world. Mm-hmm. He's been successful in that world, and that's all you can hope for. That here I am out of the business of saying if a hire will work or not, because I've seen too many where I thought it was a slam dunk and the guy, it just didn't work. And I've seen some where I thought, who they're hiring this guy, and it worked great. So it's a crapshoot. It's like the divorce rate for marriages, except if the divorce rate was 85%. Like, it's probably not going to work. And I'm not saying that for this hire. I'm saying that for USC, LSU, Washington State, TCU, Virginia Tech, Florida, all of the jobs are open. It's probably not going to work. If you get the one that works, count yourself among the lucky, because it's just hard.
Andy, right now with the climate of all these programs, it's a coaching market for sure. Who's the most valuable guy out there? Who's the most sought after guy right now?
You know, it's interesting, Sil, because I don't think there's an obvious one. I don't think there's an obvious favorite. And then the couple guys that everybody loves are not typical, like, I'm just going to go for the biggest job out there guys. So Matt Campbell at Iowa State. And I've seen people say, like, well, Matt Campbell, you know, he might go 7-5 this year. I don't care. He made Iowa State good. Like, they're legitimately good every year. Do you have any idea how hard that is? So, like, if I were any of these people, I would at least ask Matt Campbell, but he doesn't strike me as the type of person who wants to go be an SEC head coach. He's from Ohio. You know, maybe he wants to be in the Big Ten. Maybe he likes USC. But I don't necessarily see him wanting to lock horns with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart on the recruiting trail all the time. So, you know, maybe he's going to have to go somewhere else. Luke Fickell, same thing.
Right.
Luke Fickell's experience has been informed in a different way than these other people. And he mentioned this when I talked to him. He was like the last interview I did right before the pandemic. And it was really interesting talking to him because he's like, I was the head coach at Ohio State for 7 months. And it made me never want to be a head coach again. Like Mark D'Antonio, his old boss, had to talk him into trying to be a head coach at Cincinnati because he wasn't going to do it. He was going to stay as a position coach and maybe he moves up to a coordinator. But he's like, I'm not sure I ever want to be that again. And so he's got 6 kids. One of his kids plays for Cincinnati. Like, you're going to have the perfect situation to lure him out of there. So those two would be the obvious hires. In any other year, if they were typical people who are like, I'm going to take whatever the best job is. So they would be the candidates at USC, at LSU, and at Florida. But I wouldn't expect either of them to want LSU or Florida. So then you go to a different group of people. Mark Stoops at Kentucky is one that I think people are going to look at. You know, he's been really good there. Now, his recruiting strategy is pretty unique, where he goes to Ohio and says, hey, kids that don't want to play in Ohio, that Ohio State doesn't want, or he goes to Western Pennsylvania. Ohio State doesn't want you. Come down here and play in the SEC. It's not far from home. It's actually closer to home than Michigan State or Wisconsin. So just come down here. And it works. It's a good recruiting strategy. Would that work at LSU or Florida? Don't know.
A coach who's won a historically
hard place working at Florida, Andy.
A coach who's won a historically hard place to win, who has an unfamiliar or unique recruiting strategy, feels familiar.
Yeah,
right. Different recruiting strategies. One is just the transfer portal. The other is actually trying to get kids out of high school.
Well,
and Mark Stoops is. I'm making a joke. Mark Stoops is a way better recruiter.
I know what you're talking about. No, I don't know that he's a way better coach than Dan Mullen.
Recruiter.
Yes,
Dan's a great coach.
Yeah, Mark Stoops is a hardcore recruiter, and if you go look at how many people cheat off Kentucky's paper in recruiting, like when they offer a guy, everybody jumps in because they know they can evaluate. But Mel Tucker's another interesting one. Now, I've heard. You know, I read what they said about a potential contract for him. And if Michigan State really offers him that much money, he should sign that contract and never look back. But if that's not out there, if they're not going to pay $8.5 million, then I would listen to what people have to say. And if I were LSU or Florida or USC, I would want to talk to Mel Tucker because Mel recruits like the guys we're talking about. Like he hadn't had a chance to do that yet, but he does it.
He did wonders in the transfer portal to get Michigan State's where they are right now. And he had to. But that Michigan State job, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. Mark D'Antonio is the winningest coach in their program's history. He was there 13 years, won his division 4 times.
Yeah.
He would not have been at Florida for 13 years if he won his division.
Correct.
4 times.
He won the league. He won the league 3 times, Nick. If you win 3 SECs in 13 years, if you space them out enough at Florida, you're hanging in there.
So Andy's like, if you do it once every 3 years, then you're good.
Nick, you're
you got to space it out. You can't cluster them together.
No, Nick's clickbait. Nick went to like the random negative of it, but he won the conference 3 times. Nick, that was clever. I like it.
In 13 years.
That's still pretty good, man.
Yeah.
You know how many times Florida's won the conference in the last 13 years, Nick?
I've been here for 8, so
Yeah.
that's 0 of 8.
Just
Wait,
once.
is it? It's once. Okay, it's
Yeah.
2008. That's right. I can't do math. The joke on my podcast is that we can't do math in real time. So
I saw you doing that.
Yeah, he was carrying
yeah,
the
it was
one.
like I'm counting on my fingers basically.
It's
So
wild. It's my 10th year next year, Andy, and it's going to be my 4th head coach.
That is crazy to think.
you just said
But-
it was your 8th year.
No.
10th season,
I
8th
don't think we can do
season.
math either, Andy.
Confusing.
10th season.
You just skipped the
See,
nine.
I already can't do math. Don't make it more confusing for me.
God, no. Guy got to keep this guy around every week, Andy. Florida search this year, last year took about a month. Obviously, you were in a football season and everything else. When do you anticipate an announcement in the next couple of weeks? Do you think we start to hear murmurs sooner rather than later? What do you think?
Now, the Baylor thing screwed me up because there was always rules about this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Baylor's like, no, we're hiring our guy today. Like, he's
Right.
coming tomorrow. We're getting Joey McGuire now. Or so, I'm sorry, the Texas Tech thing hiring Joey McGuire from Baylor. I'm getting my Baylor open because Dave Aranda might get USC and Baylor might be open. So my brain is very confused at the moment. But yes, when Texas Tech hired Joe McGuire from Baylor, and it's like, no, we just fired our coach Saturday. It's Wednesday. That's our guy. Like, I was like, okay. Because normally I'd say, okay, Florida will announce its next head coach the day after his regular season ends, or if he's in a championship game, it'll be right after that. Well, like Billy Napier, for example, they're in the Sun Belt championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Sun Belt championship game big enough to put off announcing if let's say Florida decides that's the guy? Is the Sun Belt championship game big enough to put off announcing that this week and just saying his last game will be the Sun Belt championship game? Have a nice hurrah week, and then he's recruiting for Florida. Like, is that bad manners?
That was reportedly a point of contention with him and Auburn last year because he was a want to stay the course with his team.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the tie-in bowl is for the Sun Belt. But I don't think, and I don't know that Florida's in a position if that's their guy to hold him hostage and say sign now and do this or else we're going to somebody else. But I don't know if the Independence Bowl is more important than taking over at Florida and starting to recruit.
Right, and I don't think that's it. I think it would be the championship game at most for
December
for a guy in that boat. Now, if it's a guy in a Power 5 league that's playing in a championship game, then you got to wait till after the now. Or if it's a coordinator of a team that's going to make the playoff. Look, we've seen that. Kirby Smart was working for Georgia and Alabama at the same time. That happened. Like, it's not like it's never happened before. Jeremy Pruitt was working for Alabama and Tennessee at the same time. So that can be done. If they go the hot coordinator route and it's somebody who's in the playoff, that's fine. Because it's a good recruiting pitch, actually. Hey, I'm scripting practice for this playoff practice.
Mm-hmm.
Want to come play for me?
Yeah, I watched Dan Mullen his first year FaceTime about 12 recruits from the field of the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in Atlanta. I don't know if it's Superdome, Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah.
And I could hear him asking, "Oh, what's Miami's doing today?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're not playing on January 1st in this New Year's Six Bowl that Florida."
Oh yeah, I mean, like Tom Herman when he was the OC at Ohio State, he walks off the field after the national championship game, and David Bassity, the greatest sports information director in the world, who's now the PR guy for the Atlanta Falcons, walks up. This is in Phoenix, by the way. It's not in Houston. Or no, I'm sorry, it was in Dallas. So he had driven up from Houston. Walks up and hands him a Houston hat so that he could put it on and be photographed on a field full of confetti wearing a Houston hat.
Mm-hmm.
Genius. He would be a great social media coordinator as well.
Oh, this guy's the best. The Falcons schedule releases. He's the one who does those now.
Okay, those are classic. Those are great.
Well, Andy, any parting thoughts You hung out for about an hour, which we love.
You're
and
almost a
appreciate.
host, Andy.
Yeah. We're almost gonna be the fourth host. We're gonna kick the.
Well, what that means, unfortunately, for all three of you is when I need you on my podcast and I call, you're stuck.
We gotta make some time.
Yeah, I'm always
That makes it
available.
tough.
You must come on. You can't pull the. Oh no, I got a thing. I got a thing.
Well, I appreciate you guys putting your podcast out, especially when I'm traveling. It's always nice to listen to something Sunday, when I'm waiting in an airport.
That was
on
the
Southwest.
first thing we decided. I get the job, and John Hayes, who used to be Paul Feinbaum's producer, who runs our podcast, he comes up to me and says, "We're going to do a show with you. You can do as many days a week as you want, but I only have one request. In the season, you have to do a show as soon as the game's in Saturday night so we can put it out Sunday morning." And I am all for that because I used to, for 3 years, I did the SiriusXM College Channel show from 9 to noon on Sundays. And it was great because we would take a lot of calls. People were always so frustrated. There was always so much to talk about. And people loved that. You got so much feedback on that. And so it was like nobody else is putting out a podcast right after the games. So now there's a couple more people doing it. But I was so glad. And there's nothing more gratifying than when I wake up Sunday morning and people are sending me pictures of the breakfast they made while listening to us. Like that is the ultimate. So I appreciate everybody who does that. And but I mean, you guys have the most loyal listeners anywhere. I know that because every time I come on here, it goes crazy. And so I just hope I can get a little bit of the secret sauce. So hopefully some of y'all will come over to the Andy Staples show every once in a while.
Yeah,
Silk's got the sauce.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's why I did a story on Silk.
Silk's a big ass guy.
Hey, Andy, I got that. I'm putting that on my wall, man. I don't know if you know about that, but I printed it out, bro.
Oh, I'm in the Cush House.
Yes,
very
sir.
Nice. Very nice. I am honored. No, well, I had been saying for years that nobody in Florida gets sports talk right. Like all the radio stations in Florida, except Jacksonville. The Jacksonville stations a little bit. They'll talk some college football, but for the most part, they're all NFL or NBA, and it's like, who cares? Have you actually talked to anyone in this state? Like they care about Florida State, and Miami.
It's super local. Like I'm down in South Florida, and I'm a Gator fan. But all you're gonna hear on the local radio was hurricane talk. So turn up. It's not like you can turn on the AM and listen to any Gator talk at all in South Florida. You kind of had to search for it online.
Yeah, so I'm glad y'all are here because this is something that Florida fans needed, and I know you've got the whole network, Silk, where you're taking care of Miami people and Florida State people too, and it was necessary. It really was. So I'm just glad it's here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Andy. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. Anytime you need me, hit me up.
You got it.
Next time you come on, you can give me some compliments, and then the next time after that, it's their turn.
That's right.
Well, Nick, I never see you in the gym. I'll give Nick compliments now. Nick gets after it in the gym. Like this man is a maniac. You've seen it. Well, you see how tight his pants are. Like you have to never skip leg day if you're going to be daring enough to wear those pants.
He strikes me as a guy that does curls in the squat rack, though.
Never. But you don't put hubcaps on a Ferrari. That's why you never skip leg day.
So here's my thing. I don't care if you do curls in the squat rack, but the people who do curls in the squat rack never clean the bar off after they do the curls in the squat rack. They are all animals. They just refuse to put your plates back where they belong.
If you're strong enough to put it on the bar and lift it, you're strong enough to put it back.
You can take it off. Exactly.
Not when I'm finished my set. I'm like kind of weak.
You don't have any protein in your life. You're not lifting anymore.
Nah, I do aerobics.
Oh, man. Andy, well, we appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm sure that your plate will rival amongst the best Thanksgiving plates that we see on the internet on Thursday.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, brother. Andy Staples from the Athletic.
Let's do some Thanksgiving talk. It's Thanksgiving week.
My birthday's on Thanksgiving.
Whatever you may call it in your personal life.
Are there multiple
favorite pie?
Apple. Dutch apple.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nailed
yeah,
it. Ooh, that's true.
Yeah,
That's so Caucasian of both of you.
Well, here you go. What
I
about
like a lot of different pie. As you can
Give me
tell.
your
pumpkin
second
pie
favorite
or
pie
sweet
then.
potato pie?
Which one?
That's my favorite pie.
Sweet
Pumpkin or
potato?
sweet potato?
Pumpkin or sweet? Sweet, easy.
Yeah, I like sweet potato a little bit more. I'll be honest with you. One bite of each, I'll take pumpkin pie, but a whole slice, give me sweet potato.
What kind of thing is that? Explain that. Hold on. Explain that.
I get tired of the taste of
rich.
I get tired of the taste of pumpkin in about 3 bites.
Right. So
Whereas a sweet potato pie, I'll do the whole thing. Not the whole pie, the whole slice.
The whole pie.
My favorite pie that may not be sweet potato pie is pecan pie. I'm a big fan of caramel though.
I'm a texture guy, so I don't like the crunchy pecans on.
Yeah, I'm just put Oreo.
pecans.
Can we get him off the show already?
He's gotta go. A sneaky one is blueberry. I would never like bring it, but when it's there, it's like a nice little, because the blueberries have some like tartness to it. Everything's like sweet. But for me, it's the Dutch apple pie with like a scoop of ice cream, vanilla ice cream on top. Boom.
Boom. All right. Well, since we're gonna do this is ad lib here. Silk, I know that you've changed your eating habits as of the last few years, but were you a turkey or a ham guy?
Turkey for sure.
Really?
Nick.
Yeah, big turkey guy. My pops is trill with the turkey, whether he was smoking it or frying it. It came out like trill as you could get it. So I'm a turkey guy.
I'm both.
And you can make sandwiches. Sandwiches slap.
No, I'm both. You don't. It's Thanksgiving. You don't choose.
No, you have to. We just picked pie, Nick. We just picked pie. So now it's your turn to pick one or the other. These are the rules.
It's a real current thing.
Sponsored by Prize Picks, Nick.
Sponsored by Prize Picks. I'm gonna go. You got to have gravy on the turkey, so I'm gonna go ham because I think that's a crutch.
Who's cooking your turkey, boy?
Yeah, I feel like Nick. You also are probably like a honey baked ham guy, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
See what I mean? So Nick is adding sugar and fiery everything else that Nick just like criticized about turkey by having to add gravy. He's adding to his.
All right,
ham.
Stretch Armstrong over there. You're taking a leap.
No,
that's a great take. That's a great take by Brian. I like that.
All right. So let's see. Favorite
you
side
cooked
dish.
your gravy on the ham, is what he's saying.
I'll put gravy on the ham too. Side dish is tough.
Mm-hmm. You pick 2.
Okay.
Vari's on screens.
The fall autumn leaves on Vari's plate. I'm gonna go with the traditional sweet potato, mashed sweet potatoes that have the marshmallows on them.
Oh yeah,
broiled marshmallow on top.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
with and a good mac and cheese.
I used to be anti marshmallow, but it's fire. It's all right.
Yeah.
I like that. But I'm gonna go greens, man. Greens is the GOAT. Dressing is a close second.
I've got a question about dressing here in a second. I'm gonna go dressing and mashed potatoes.
I've got probably a controversial take.
We never do mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving for some odd reason.
I'll send you my grandmother's recipe. It's fantastic. Lots of heavy cream though. So
potentially controversial take. I don't like stuffing. Never makes its way to my plate on Thanksgiving.
I don't know. I feel like that's one of those things that a lot of people like don't love stuffing. I feel like they eat it because it's tradition. I like
love
stuffing
dressing.
because of the
recipe.
My
aunt Llewellyn makes a fire dressing, bro. Like you can tell by her name the dressing fire. Her name's Llewellyn.
Listen, if your name is Llewellyn, you got fire. What is dressing?
It's
like stuffing, but it's like in a pan. It's like dressing, bro. It's stuffing, dressing.
Well, I feel like the phrases are pretty interchanged, right? Like I feel like stuffing used to be cooked inside of the turkey hole.
Yes. Probably why I got the name.
I feel like the phrase is interchangeable, stuffing and dressing.
So we do dressing would be a wet stuffing.
No, I think it's the
What?
same.
I don't know.
That sounds
Nick,
nuts.
we just had a
I don't know what
fantastic
dressing is.
conversation with Andy Staples. And you're just bringing it downhill.
Hey, you never get too high on your highs, too low on your lows. I'm trying to keep us right in the middle.
Dressing versus stuffing is the same. It's the same thing. There's it's not wet or dry. It's
So then I don't like
just an interchangeable term. You don't.
I want to know what wet dressing would look like.
I don't know. You said
It's all that gravy that Nick puts on his turkey on top of his dressing.
Buddy, listen, if you're gonna die on the anti-gravy hill, that's on you.
Nobody's dying on an anti-gravy hill.
When y'all boys gonna start drinking eggnog?
I don't drink eggnog. We drink coquito.
Coquito's
growing up in the Cuban household.
Add some rum chata.
Yeah.
That time of the year.
That time of the year. Silk, are you an eggnog guy?
I used to be a heavy eggnog guy, but my stomach don't agree to it. Now I'm not like totally vegan or nothing like that. So I eat eggs. I do eat eggs, but I don't like eggnog anymore because my stomach can't handle it, bro. It's just too thick.
Yeah, I can do about a glass of eggnog and then I'm done. Not even the full thing.
Man, when I was a kid, I used to run through a whole jug of it and have the whole house reeking, fam.
Add a little whiskey to it. Man, now I'm talking about rum chata and whiskey. I sound like an alcoholic. Well, hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving. I'll be down in South Florida tomorrow, actually.
Nice.
So
very nice. It's my birthday Wednesday, and Florida plays. My birthday's on Thanksgiving Thursday, and since Florida is in Gainesville, the family's coming up, so I'm hosting Thanksgiving.
Well, happy early birthday, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe we'll announce a new head coach on your birthday.
I hope not. That's work. That's work.
Oh, you're gonna be working. Yeah, we're gonna break something.
It's my Larry Bird year.
You gonna do a Thanksgiving Spaces on your birthday? No,
we'll do a Thanksgiving Spaces. We can do an Egg Bowl Spaces. We can watch Florida's not next head coach Lane Kiffin.
Hey, and I want to apologize. We had a Spaces yesterday. It was a ton of fun. Silk was in it for a little while, and then he bounced. We got a little rowdy. I learned that there's a mute button now, and I learned too that you can rescind speakerships from folks. So probably be doing that a little bit more in the future. But that was a lot of fun. I think we had over 1,500 people join us. So thank you guys. We'll be doing that on Twitter a little bit more often.
I was trying to keep up, man. I was just traveling. I had to drop people off to the airport, trying to travel back to South Florida, but I haven't really kicked off this whole Spaces thing like I wanted to. But I'm gonna get involved, man. Let's do it. Let's do it Thanksgiving morning. But,
I'm here for
it's your Larry Bird year, Nick.
Larry Bird year, my Bird year.
Birdman.
That was good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I listened to a lot of Birdman and Lil Wayne in middle school and high school.
All right, boys, let's get into some takes. We're not going to discuss the game from the other day against Missouri. Nick, do you have fun? I do
want to discuss a shout out to what is Missouri's head coach's last name?
Dean Pritchard from Old School.
Drinkwitz. Eli
Drinkwitz.
Eli Drinkwitz. So shout out to him, man, for just having the kahunas to go for two and put them out of our miseries. We appreciate that. The Dark Vader troll just heading down, like every guy
Classic.
that faced Dan Mullen kind of trolled him on the way out a little bit. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
If you're gonna talk smack and you're gonna be the way Dan Mullen is, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you're not on top anymore, it's gonna come back to you. I think Eli Drinkwitz might be hilarious, but I don't think he's gonna win enough at Missouri for us to see that. And then he's like a mini version of Dan. They're gonna end up getting sick of like his act when he goes, 5-8 or 5-7, the bunch.
Yeah. I think that was his crowning achievement. He threw a pot shot at Dan Mullen at SEC Media Days, if I remember correctly, about Dan Mullen always complaining about something. Did the little Darth Vader thing at the end. had his lightsaber ready to go. But yes, well, before we do that, let's give a shout out to our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Visit homefieldapparel.com. They're going to be doing a big Black Friday sale this weekend. So go visit them. Use promo code Stadium and Gale. But big savings on shirts and hoodies and things of that nature. Homefieldapparel.com. Christmas is just around the corner. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever holidays it might be. Heck, maybe even you want to buy Nick a present for his birthday. Use promo code
Nick's
Stadium
given.
and please don't ever say that again. Promo code Stadium and Gale.
It's definitely wet dressing on Thanksgiving.
Wet dressing.
Pause.
That's wild. So the Gators do lose in overtime to Missouri. And the Gators moved to 5-6 on the season with a win, needing a win against Florida State on Saturday to become bowl eligible. Not long after the game on Sunday, the Gators do announce at about 1 o'clock news breaks that Dan Mullen is going to be, or was fired, as head coach of the University of Florida. Takeaways from the game before we get into a coaching search that doesn't look like it's going to last very long. Nick,
It's interesting because it's someone. I have one really close friend here in Gainesville who loves coaching searches. Last year when LSU was making up stuff about Kevin O'Sullivan going, he's throwing me out baseball coach hot boards, and I'm like, you need help. Please stop. And I'm blocking your phone number. Fans love it. I get it. It's fun. It is for us writing it and covering it. It's all consuming. Every rumor, every message board post, every friend who has a booster, and their booster was because they bought tickets season tickets in the upper deck, and now they're a booster. It said that this is happening. You have to chase it all down. So it's like 24/7. I can't remember who it was that they hired, but I had to leave Christmas Eve Mass one year because Florida made Ed Ashoff broke the story that Florida was hiring someone. So it's not fun for us. This one appears that Florida's dialed in on their guy, and they'll be. It looks like it'll be a quick search. But even if it's a 10-day, 12-day search, that will feel like 3 months.
Yeah, today was a wild day on the internet. In fact, yesterday was too. I had heard at about 1 o'clock that there was going to be a team meeting at 1:30 to announce this. I wasn't in a position to break that kind of story. That's not a story that I would break, nor do I have all the facts, and nor do I have the steps to go through to ever break that kind of story. I just said clear your schedules at about 1 o'clock.
Next time, I know a guy. His name's Miami.
I was
yeah,
right around that same time, Dan. I had a player reach out to me. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "We have a team meeting." I was like, "Oh, he's gone, bro." He's like, "No, he's not." And I'm like, "When have you guys met on Sunday?" He goes, "We don't." I go, "What do you think they're throwing you a pizza party for losing to Missouri?"
Yeah.
Like, you're meeting on Sunday, bro.
So,
there's only one thing that could happen.
He probably had pizza.
So they probably had
Some
pizza.
paisanos, not a sponsor.
You know where they didn't have is Satchels. You know why? Because Dan Mullen never went to Satchels. They said during his time at Europe. No, well, Nick. So anyway, so yesterday the news comes out about 1:30. Scott Strickland has a press conference at I believe 3 o'clock. Correct, Nick?
Yes, it was 2 o'clock for me.
Yeah. So goes through everything, announces, the care that the decision making that they went through. He was asked about the women's basketball scandal. He chose to not talk about that, and then just kind of went through what I thought was a pretty routine press conference. But also he did reiterate a number of things in there, and a lot of what he reiterated was his commitment to the athletic department and to football, and making sure that they have the resources to be able to hire not only the right coach, but to be able to equip and tool the new head coach to be able to be successful. So that press conference happened at about 3 o'clock, goes until about 3:30 or so. And then everything starts flying. That's when everybody has a booster friend. Today, Bet Online and a number of the Vegas sports outlets put out who they thought would be the Gators' next head coach at around. See, this was about noon that they started to put out. Billy Napier was plus 350, Lane Kiffin plus 500, Mario Cristobal plus 550, Bob Stoops, Mark Stoops, both at plus 800, along with James Franklin, Luke Fickle, and then you start to get in to some names, Eric Bieniemy and Dan Quinn. You get all the way down to Deion Sanders at plus 2,500, and then Tim Tebow at plus 10,000.
All right. Real quick. Tebow or Deion? Real quick, who you hired?
Deion.
If I'm Scott Strickland, I am taking out a second mortgage on my home. I'm selling the car. I'm putting all of it on Tim Tebow, and then hiring him and retiring. I'm out.
Nick, you just said whatever on here, bro. Like, you don't care what you don't use your platform responsibly, Nick. You just say whatever on here.
No, it's because I said that before the show started, and he just like turned things around, changed the names, passed it on. Jeez Louise, Nick. All right, let me get through the rest of this story. So anyway, today at about 5 o'clock, Bet Online and a lot of the other Vegas sports books changed their odds. They have Billy Napier at plus 140, Lane Kiffin at plus 500, Mark Stoops, Mario Cristobal, and Bob Stoops round out the top five.
Real in the Ville.
And then not long before we started the show at about 7:30 Monday night, Bet Online and a number of the other Vegas websites removed betting to be able to bet on who the Gators' next head coach. Now, maybe you're not in tune with betting. What do those plus 350 numbers, plus 500? That means if you were to bet $100, you would receive $350 back if you were right, plus your original bet. So that's what those numbers mean. So for every $100 you spent, you would receive that in profit. So only usually one reason that Vegas removes bids or betting options is because they don't want to lose money, and news is out there potentially that Florida might have made their decision. So long-winded story. We had people tracking flights from VPNs overseas because UF's flight tracker is only domestic. We had people that knew boosters. We had a lot of funny business happen today, all in the first day. So boys, let's talk about the Gators coaching search.
Happy to be here. Nick said we wouldn't be here. He didn't see a way we'd be here, but we're here.
He's pretty adamant, huh?
Yeah, he's pretty
Well,
adamant.
I think Dan Mullen listens to our podcast, and he goes, I'm going to make that guy look. He goes, I'm going to make that guy look like an idiot. I'll show him. I'll get fired.
He's like, I still get $12 million.
He's like, what? What? Chance to make Nick look dumb? I'll get fired, and I'll get rich.
Hey, I can see Dan Mullen being that type of guy.
Petty. I like it. I mean, listen. Silk said Florida was going 16-0. If we're sitting here in August and September, this is not a reality that you could have wrapped your head around.
Mm-hmm.
If Dan Mullen, after they lose to Georgia, I'm thinking, okay, well, Florida's going to be probably a double-digit favorite in their next 4 games. You finish 8-4, 9-4 with the bowl game.
I had a sneaky suspicion.
You were hoping. You were hoping.
No, I wasn't hoping. It just didn't feel like this team just never felt like no chemistry, no leadership. I just never bought it, man. I just didn't see a consistent product. I didn't think he was bought in. I didn't think he cared. Smiling, leaving the Kentucky game after that, I believe that smile was like, I don't care. No matter what he said, catching him at a bad moment. I just didn't buy it from the beginning of the season. I was like, this guy's not checked in. I just knew he wasn't gonna have enough to like just win all the way out, bro. So here we are. What do you feel about supposedly looking like it's gonna be
Billy Napier.
Billy Napier. I'm sorry, drew a blank.
No, you're fine. So Billy Napier, the head coach at University of Louisiana Lafayette. This is his 4th year. As Andy Staples said, his first year was kind of a rebuilding year. The last 3 years, he's done quite well. Has not won the Sun Belt. Played for the Sun Belt Championship last year. Is currently undefeated. Is undefeated in Sun Belt, 9-1 in the season right now. Or 10-1 on the season. It looks to be the guy that Florida is zeroing in on. Has a great pedigree. One school, and I know that you're listening to this, you heard one school that Andy forgot to mention is Billy Napier went over to Colorado State with Jim McElwain for a year. Saw the light and then came back. But he saw the light. He knew. We should have asked him his opinion. But Billy Napier is an up-and-coming name known as a tenacious recruiter. To couple that with a tweet earlier that I said today about him landing a bunch of 5 stars at Alabama and how you have to look beyond that. That comment wasn't a dig at Billy Napier. It's just a lot of coaches go to Alabama and can land 5 stars. My comment there is that Billy Napier has always been known to be not only a tenacious recruiter, but a great relationship builder. Andy said it. He's probably not the biggest rah-rah mayor type of coach, but I think that he's a guy that really relates to players, really relates to recruits. Relatively young guy. But is going to need to build and upgrade his staff. So, if he does come to Florida, and we're not announcing that a decision has been made or a hire's been made officially and lines have been dotted, but it is a matter of, if and when Billy Napier does come, what his staff looks like and what the infrastructure that he builds is.
Yeah, I think he takes this job, and I'm not looking at him to run my offense or anything like that. Whatever coach, if it's not Billy, I want a CEO approach. I think having play callers as your head coach is a little bit overrated these days. I don't think Nick Saban's doing it anymore. Kirby's not doing it anymore. I think the future of football is just too many duties and responsibilities. So I like this. I like the CEO approach. If it is Billy Napier. I also like how calculated he is. He turned down some jobs in the past that could have got him some bigger checks and into the SEC. So I do think he's a calculated guy. He's chosen good jobs. Leaving McElwain was a smart decision. So he seems like a calculated guy that makes great decisions.
Bro, why's my dog Matt catching stray bullets tonight from the both of you? Just trying to spread peanut butter to the crust. He knows that Antonio Callaway doesn't like the crust.
Hey man, we pretended to like
we pretended to like him for a little bit.
Yeah, to be cool with the way he wore his shoes and shit, like a lot of goofy shit.
Well, what about the pleats on Dan's pants with his Jordans? Baggy khakis and Jordans. Not a great look.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Napier.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good hire. So my cons would be obviously the caveat is that he was 29 years old at Clemson. Was fired after 2 years. The first year, the offense was good. Second year, took a little bit of a downturn. The only other one, and I give him a pass, 29 years old. I mean, he wasn't even 30 years old when he was there. The only other one is that
which is crazy.
You're with Nick Saban for a while, and there's a bunch of turnover with coordinators, and you were never looked at to be the guy. And there's always seems to be somebody on staff or, stashed away in the basement in the rehab, watching film and cutting stuff up that gets promoted inside that program to it. And Billy was never,
I think he
promoted to play calling.
Wasn't he towards the end when Nick did start like hiring big time offensive coordinators though?
Yeah, I mean he was there when Lane Kiffin was there.
Doug Nussmeier was there.
But then when you go and look at it, and it's ULL, and I mean they'll have some games against like they went up to Iowa State one year. They played at Texas to start this year. That's their only loss, and they might not be able to compete with that just because of the level of talent that you can get at Lafayette versus Texas. But I don't love him as a play caller at Louisiana. And I think, like you said, Silk, Steve Spurrier had a quote and said, listen, if you got a job to be a head coach because you were really good at calling plays, don't give that to somebody else. Keep doing what got you here. But I think I would rather him find a great defensive coordinator and find a great offensive coordinator, and you worry about controlling your program. He seems to be from the people I've talked to, somebody who will almost micromanage a little bit. He wants to have total control over his program. And you can't fault him for that. You're the head coach. You're going to get blamed for everything. Control it. But I'm also a person who says, hey, if I'm trying to rebuild a motor in a car, I don't know how to do that. Find someone that knows how to do it and let them do it.
I think he got to see two of the best do it with Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban. So he has a good idea of how to run a program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that it goes into, it's not necessarily just, teetering in other people's business and, being overprotective and getting involved in places that you hired a coach to do. I think one of the things that you see Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Dabo, and a lot of the other coaches that have been successful, even Steve Spurrier, were hyper interested in what their staff was doing, were very involved and not play calling necessarily or not in development, but in making sure that they're working together towards a common goal and being accountable to one another and being accountable to recruiting and being accountable to development and being accountable for that room. Right. And I think that that's some of the things that when we talk about what, Dan Mullen didn't do great at, and a lot of it came down to organization. And, I mentioned it yesterday on, our spaces that we had is that, just because you're a great offensive coordinator, a great defensive coordinator, doesn't necessarily make you a head coach. Dabo Swinney was never an offensive or defensive coordinator before he became a head coach. There's a lot of coaches that have been very successful in the NFL that were not, the world's best offensive or defensive coordinator. It takes a lot of organization. It takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of strategy, and it takes a lot of buy-in to be able to be successful, not just being great at calling plays, because Dan Mullen was great at calling plays, but he wasn't great at managing a football program. And so that's one of the things I do like about Billy Napier, because everything that I've said and heard, or everything that I've heard about him said, was that he's fantastic with organization, whether it was when he was at Alabama, Arizona State, or at University of Louisiana Lafayette.
I just got like some flashbacks to Mac, which is something that we loved, because McElwain took Saban had, I think it was a 36-month calendar that Saban had, and McElwain took that, because you have to be like that detail oriented and looking that far ahead when it comes to recruiting and things like that. But I do like it. I don't know if it worked out for McElwain, or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't ready at that point to run it like that. But I do like that Saban has that, and that's probably something that Napier got from working in that Saban, in that program.
Yeah, I don't think any of the candidates have like a perfect resume. I think Napier has like things about him that I don't like, but I do like his ceiling. I think he has a very high ceiling. He's obviously showed like coaches like Dabo and Nick Saban that he was a valuable coach at a young age. He was doing some good things, and like we always say on this show, like Andy just said, like it's like choosing these coaches is like choosing a recruit. The fit matters. So he could have been bad fits at some different situations, and it could work out for Florida, and it may not. But on paper, I think I like him over even Stoops, Stoops.
Either one.
Either Stoops. I don't care which one you pick. I think their ceiling is low. I think Mark Stoops is Dan Mullen again, in my opinion. You may upgrade recruiting a little bit, but that ceiling is low, man. I see him do some egregious things when he's coaching.
So no, Silk, I think that you're right. A point that I also want to, I think is important to make is that Florida didn't fire Dan Mullen to hire Billy Napier. And I know that sounds, or whoever the coach may be, I know that sounds weird to say, but Florida had to move on because of decisions that they made internally to say, hey, we need to move on because we are not upholding a certain standard. That doesn't mean that the person that's being hired is a one-to-one comparison, or that a one-to-one comparison can be made. You go out and you look for the criteria of what you're looking for, and does the person that you're looking for hit these criteria? What are our non-negotiables? Right. What are the things that we would like to have? What are some added pluses, right? So when you do that, you go out and you look for that organization, you look for that structure of what you want in a coach. So this coaching search could be over very, very quickly. Florida didn't make their first phone calls today. Florida didn't make their first phone calls yesterday. This has been something that's been in the works for a while. So when people talk about due diligence and what did Florida do, or did Florida settle on a guy that's unproven? Well, there's a lot of proven coaches that have been hired that didn't work out, and there's a lot of unproven coaches that have been hired that didn't work out. You have to have your list of what
Who's
you
proven
want to
that's
coach.
on the board though? I don't think anybody's proven. Like I've seen
No,
Lane
no,
Kiffin name out there. He's not proven. Mark Stoops not proven. None of these guys to me really are proven. They have some Power 5 experience.
It's a bad year to have a bad year.
What was that?
It was a bad year to have a bad year for a coach.
Right.
Or for a school.
What do you think about Lane Kiffin?
Woo! My guy. If you're watching on YouTube, here's my bobblehead that I got last year of Lane. Lane Kiffin, from my professional standpoint, love it. Content forever. Infinity content. I personally think Lane Kiffin would be a beautiful disaster at Florida. And we'd be sitting here 3 years from now talking about who's Florida going to be 3-4 years from now, who's Florida going to get to coach their team again. Scott Strickland in his press conference Sunday said sustained success.
There you go.
8 times. Lane Kiffin hasn't had sustained employment at one place for more than 4 years in his career. He's letting you know it's not Lane. I don't think Scott Strickland even calls Lane Kiffin.
So you don't agree with Vegas?
No, he's not their favorite. He's not the favorite.
He's second favorite, right?
Yeah, he was the second favorite. Yeah.
If you're not first, you're last. Ricky Bobby, Andy Staples.
You know, I think one of the things that's interesting, and Lane Kiffin has an interesting story, and I'm not 100% against Lane Kiffin, like one day in the future. But Lane Kiffin's story, when you think about a lot of like looking past his tomfoolery, a lot of it doesn't not make sense, right? A lot of people is like, oh, he's not had sustained success. And you're right, Nick, he hasn't. And I think that, you know, he's going to need to get that before, you know, because his history does still weigh, you know, very heavily on him. But, you know, he became a head coach. I mean, we talk about Billy Napier being an offensive coordinator when he was 29. I mean, Lane Kiffin was an NFL head coach when he was like 30. Right. So Lane Kiffin, you know, goes to the Oklahoma Raiders. He gets fired, or Oakland Raiders, sorry. Goes to Tennessee, is there for a year, leaves for USC, which is an improvement of a job. Right. It doesn't work out there. Just a lot of reasons he gets fired. He goes to Alabama, goes through the Nick Saban car wash, ends up being an offensive coordinator to win the national championship, right? Then he goes to FAU. That's a good, decent move for him, and a guy that if he didn't have his baggage would have probably gotten a better job from being Alabama's offensive coordinator. He goes there, has some success, turns that into a job at Ole Miss, again, a step up. So I think Lane Kiffin is probably, you know, 2 or 3 years away from being able to have a job like a Florida, Texas A&M, like a big blue blood.
I think it's the nuances of the things he do at all those jobs and how he left, and it still don't come up as if he's matured.
Right.
With some of the things he does now, either on Twitter, the way he left and was trolling Nick Saban a little bit, like a lot of stuff he do, it's like childish. So when people, yeah, it's funny to us, but like writing and shit like that content. But if I'm an AD, I'm just like, how mature is this guy? You know, like some of the stuff that he did, the way he left Tennessee was egregious. He took a step up, but the way he left was crazy. So people still questioning whether or not he's maturing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, right? But that was also 13 years ago.
No, but he's trolling like Nick Saban.
I get that. No, and I'm not saying, again, I'm not vouching for Lane Kiffin to be the head coach at Florida ever. Yeah, in fact, my biggest disagreement with like hiring Lane Kiffin is that like if you look at recruiting classes, he was one of the few SEC schools ranked below Florida, right? Back when Florida, you know, had their committee, I think they're ranked like 36 in the country right now. So you know,
FIU, I recruited him when he was at FAU, which is egregious.
Right. So, you know, I think that Lane Kiffin, yes, still has a lot of growing up to do, but I also do think that a big school is going to give him
no doubt
a job soon, but it's definitely not going to be Florida. Florida cannot afford Lane Kiffin to be at the University of Florida, not money-wise, just image-wise.
I was talking to a coach, not a Florida coach, at a different program, and he said Lane Kiffin wants to coach at Miami, and he thought that Lane Kiffin and his agent or the agency would use Florida as leverage to get Miami to make a move, to get scared. I think they probably would have fired Manny if they would have lost to Pitt, but they beat Pitt. Now there's a report coming out saying that Manny's going to stay at Miami. I think Lane Kiffin got a little taste of South Florida in Boca, where he still has the house that he purchased when he was at FAU, and wants to see if it's a little spicier, a little farther down south. That coach thought that Lane was going to try to use Florida to leverage Miami to make a move on Manny and get Lane down to Miami. I don't think Lane will be at Ole Miss for much longer, but he's not coming. I don't think he's coming to Gainesville.
And that's why I think he gets a little greedy. If I'm him and I think I could get the Manning boy, I'm patient.
Yeah.
You know, like what's the rush out of there to get to a Miami lifestyle? Like they're still questioning his maturity. You know what I'm saying? Still back to the same old lane, in my opinion.
Joey Freshwater.
Right. Because if I got that type of recruit, I'm at Ole Miss, which is a step up from FAU. Let me establish myself a little bit. That way I make my next move something real big and worth it. Not I'm gambling and playing around with Miami. I can get this Manning kid.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a generational player, right? I mean that's a Tim Tebow like where people are going to commit, to wherever he commits, right? So no, Silk, I think that you're right. I do think that Lane Kiffin has some improvement that he needs to do in recruiting if he wants to have sustained success. Obviously Arch Manning's out there. He had Matt Corral when he took over Ole Miss and turned him into a Heisman Trophy contending quarterback.
That's a senior flooded roster. And he knows quarterback room got issues. That team's gonna struggle next year. So he's trying to bolt while he having a hot year.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. Who are some of the other names?
I got some names.
And we had Bob. So next was Mario Cristobal. From Oregon, former FIU head coach, was on Willie Taggart's staff at Oregon.
I was howling him until he just got smoked by Utah. It was like, whoa, what's going on here a little bit?
Somebody on our message board called him the Cuban Ron Zook, and I thought it was hilarious.
Because he's a good coach.
Because he's a great recruiter. But listen, because if you look at his overall record, the Cuban Ron Zook.
In case Miami get him.
There you go. His overall record is 61-59. So you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's the Cuban Mark Zook. But he was 24-27 at FIU. Nobody wins at FIU. You can win at FAU. FIU is a program for whatever reason. You're not going to win there. Didn't Butch Davis go there? And he couldn't win there. He won at Miami. He's 34-12 at Oregon, 22-9 inside the conference. The thing with Mario, he just got an extension. It's a $9 million buyout. You have people out west. I don't want to, offend anybody, but there's not the passion. There's not the pressure, and people just don't know football or care about football out west like they do in Gainesville or in the SEC. You've got Nike money, like literal Phil Knight Nike money. They've got unbelievable facilities. And he's building like a little West Coast Alabama out there. I think I would like the hire if they got him, but I don't know, other than getting closer to home, why he would leave. And I think Miami fans are crazy to think that he would leave Oregon and everything that he has to go to Miami with a smaller recruiting budget, a smaller budget for his assistants, worse facilities.
Because he just
and when you go home and you're the hometown guy, there's more pressure to win.
Right.
Yeah. There's about a $50 million investment that you're making over 3 years for Mario Cristobal.
Yeah.
Between buyout, between guaranteed contract, between upping salary, between staffs. Yeah. I mean, that's a crap ton of money for a school like Miami that they don't have.
But
the
money's about to be fake. The money's about to be monopoly money. When ESPN,
just print the money.
The ESPN TV contract, the SEC gets $55 million from CBS every year for the SEC Game of the Week, for the rights to that. ESPN said, cool, how about $300 million a year? They signed a year, $3 billion contract to get the rights for that
do
game.
in Miami.
No, I'm talking about Florida. I'm talking about Florida making the. I'm saying if Florida. Oh, I'm not following. Anyway, the SEC money is about to be ridiculous. So you're going to see you're going to
hijack the conversation, bro. Like where do we just go?
I'm going to go eat dinner.
So no, Nick, you're not wrong on what you're saying. I was hoping that you would bring that up a little bit earlier in the conversation about how much money and why I think that. I do want to ask you how much you guys think that Florida is going to throw out this next head coach, but let's go down the list a little bit more. So we're through Napier a bit, we're through Kiffin, we're through Cristobal. Bob Stoops' name came out, and I'm pretty sure this is what the Florida Gators fifth hire for a head coach.
No, you can't leave until we get to Kerwin Bell.
Yeah. So this is the Gators. Let's see.
Kerwin Bell comes up after the head coaching hire. Then it's like the OC rumor.
Don't worry. Somebody said, why doesn't Emmitt Smith get contacted for this job earlier today?
No. We bringing Sider back.
Yeah. So this is I'm talking about for the head coaching job. So this is
my bad.
The fifth.
Emmitt the head coach.
This will be the fifth. The sixth head coaching search that has happened since Bob Stoops left Florida. Mind you, Bob Stoops was at Florida for 3 years before he took the job at Oklahoma. Yes, the Gators won a national championship. An Iowa guy, not a Florida guy. This will be the sixth head coach search. I'm pretty sure that Bob Stoops' name has been floated every single time.
That's why we all wore IDOC last year, because we know how it goes.
Depending on who you ask, Bob Stoops had agreed to be the Florida head coach before they got Dan Mullen. Oh, and before they got Jim McElwain.
And before they got
and every coach and every coaching guy.
I thought it was before Muschamp too. Yeah,
maybe.
Oh, yeah, for
it's
sure.
every single time Florida has a coaching. And listen, I think what it is some people might have, older boosters that remember that Steve Spurrier's defensive coordinator. Of course, Bob wants to come back.
And now he's
defense.
He's 61. He hasn't coached in 5 years, and the reason he stepped down was for health. That's not what Scott Strickland is looking for in his sustained success over a long term. Again, 61.
Have people seen Bob Stoops? I've seen Bob Stoops here and there. He don't look like he
he's peddling some tequila these days.
Right. He's vibing. He look like
he's very happy to be retired.
Oh, mind you, his wife is like one of the biggest Mary Kay distributors in the world. So there is no shortage of money in the Stoops family. So
Mary Kay's still going. I didn't know that shit was still popping like that.
My
grandma used to sell that stuff.
That's wild that you're his wife is also making lots of money. I'm like, he's probably made $100 million in contracts. How much money has Bob Stoops? They each have generational wealth.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Let's see, Carol Stoops. I want to pull up some information about her.
Silk's wait, maybe Christmas is around the corner. Maybe we should call Bob. I might have to get the wife something.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull this up a little bit because I know
who else on this shit, man. I don't want to talk about Bob Stoops anymore.
So we had Bob Stoops, then Mark Stoops. We had Mark Stoops, head coach at Kentucky. Then James Franklin.
We already talked about him a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Then James Franklin. James Franklin, in my opinion, is a guy that was the hottest name in coaching. 7 games in, Penn State 6-1, top 5 in the country. They lose a bunch of games in a row.
Nah, shout out to my man Larry. I don't understand. I don't understand why Franklin is keeping these jobs sought after so much. He hasn't really done much. Even at Vanderbilt, he didn't do a whole lot.
James Franklin is an extortionist. He's about to get a bunch of money from Penn State because his name's been mentioned with every single coaching opening that comes up. James Franklin, and Penn State's going to keep him. He's going to get a bunch of money from him.
Yeah, he's definitely scamming. You're on to something.
There's apparently some discussion that there might be an extension in play for Penn State tomorrow. So Tuesday, the day you're listening to this we're talking monster money at Penn State. And, at the end of the day, good for James Franklin. He turned one spectacular season at Vanderbilt where they won 10 games into dozens of millions, if not up into the $100+ million
I
range.
said on the roll up, he's Black Mullen, and
Yeah, but at least Dan Mullen got his team ranked number 1 in the country one time, and has 3 New Year's 6 bowl appearances. I don't think James Franklin has that in a much easier conference completely. So then we move down to Luke Fickell. Yeah, plus 900.
I like
Luke
Fickell.
I like Fickell too, but he's.
I think you're gonna have to wait for them.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to wait for Fickell.
Yeah, we're not gonna get Fickell, but I do like Fickell. I just want to put that on record. I think Fickell's a good coach. I don't know if he want to lead. Could he recruit outside the Midwest? Would it be a culture fit? I don't know, but I do like what he does on paper.
I think he's a Midwest guy.
I think Ohio, Indiana, those are the states that he'll be in. I did hear something interesting.
Indiana.
That USC might
Notre Dame's in Indiana.
Yeah. That they might target Brian Kelly for that USC job. They said that if that ever were to happen, or if Brian Kelly were to leave, that Notre Dame and Luke Fickell look perfect for one another.
Yeah. Silk was like, is he talking out the side of his neck? Luke Fickell ain't going to Indiana.
No, Hoosiers. What are you talking
about? You're like, oh, Notre Dame's there. Okay, yeah, that's different.
Yeah. Then we got Matt Campbell from Iowa State. A guy that last year had a pretty good year for Iowa State. Ends up losing.
Tried to sell him, but I ain't buying him.
Yeah, I don't either. I know he's kind of a different kind of guy. Iowa State is a very hard place to win at. But Matt Campbell is known to be kind of a different guy. I don't know if his shtick or his PJ Fleck shtick would really work in Florida.
You like to oh my God, if PJ Fleck came to Florida and he had his first 4-4 start, people would be breaking oars in the stands. Row this boat.
No, I said this on Twitter and I'm gonna say it on here. We're riding like it's the Capitol if they hire PJ Fleck.
I laughed out loud when I
got some Viking horns and a coat. What's up?
Viking horns and some animal fur.
Yes. No way you bringing PJ Fleck in here.
No.
I laughed out loud when I read your tweet. Dan, you like the flyover states. Have you been to Ames, Iowa?
I have been to Ames, Iowa.
Any redeemable qualities?
No, sir.
Okay.
So
he's been there a long time.
Ames is interesting. It's like 40 minutes from Des Moines, and Des Moines is actually a pretty cool little town there in Iowa. I was in Ames for a day and one night. I used to work in higher ed consulting. People are wondering why I was in Ames.
You don't work everywhere. Bro, Dan has worked everywhere in the world, bro.
That was my job for 2 years. I traveled all over.
Bro, every show. It's a new random city you worked at, bro.
Yeah. Well, I was only there for 2 days. So, so Ames in the middle of nowhere. They do have a good barbecue place. I'm forgetting the name. I'm sure Andy knows. But it's a small town, a very small town. I mean, it is a college town. It's the Ag School of Iowa. But Ames is not a place that I'd want to live. But people are built different. So
people live there.
Yeah, people live there. A lot of people that live there, and he turned himself a pretty nice career. The thing is they still get a lot of money. Being a Big 10 school, or Big 12 school, Big 10, Big 12 school. Sorry, the number of teams in the conference. Yeah, so Big 12
count the number of teams, and that's not the number of the conference.
Let me tell you what, making $3-4 million, whatever his salary is in Ames, Iowa goes. I mean, you can buy the city.
It buys you a lot of corn.
Yeah, that buys you a ton of corn. So then we get down the list. So this is a name that.
So do you think Dan's CIA?
A little bit.
He might be.
Yeah, he's like
everywhere I've been.
Yeah, all these different jobs, bro.
Telling you what. So then next down the list, this is the name. I was surprised to see this name, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I've seen that. I didn't want to go full Willie Taggart on that one, but man, I like that on the paper.
That was a nice.
I didn't want to go full Willie Taggart like I did last time.
He's been connected to some college jobs in the past. Has interviewed for a multitudinous number of head coaching positions in the NFL as well. Has not gotten one yet, but is a name that's out there. His name fell off pretty quickly. Next was Dan Quinn, and then Bill O'Brien, and then Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson.
I wasn't mad at Dan Quinn either. I know if you're a Falcon fan, you probably ride my mentions. But I wasn't mad at Dan Quinn name being on there neither. I wouldn't mind Dan Quinn.
And then, so I really like Dave Clawson. We talked a little bit about it
Oh,
last week.
no, I'm cool
I
with
told you
Dave
that he's
Clawson.
a guy that's not interested in Florida. I don't know if his whole he runs a mesh scheme that I don't know if would work on offense, in the SEC. But I do think that he's a successful coach. But that would have been a tough hire after Wake Forest loses again last week. Then we get in a silly season. Deion Sanders at plus 2,500. Urban Meyer at plus 5,000. And then this is just Las Vegas begging you to just give them money. Tim Tebow at plus 10,000 would round out the betting odds for the Gators head coach. I mean, and then, I guess that's it.
What about
There's no more odds. The odds are gone now.
No, they got to
Steve
take it after
Steve Spurrier? What are his odds?
Steve Spurrier's
that.
odds
They say Spurrier was a pivotal, was a key part in getting Mullen up out of here, right? Did somebody report that?
Paul Feinbaum said that. Paul Feinbaum said it on a podcast, and then on 3.
Get his ass out of here now.
Well, he's got to go.
Well, Scott.
Well, Dan, it's no more wine for you. See ya.
This isn't the standard.
All right, Scott, you need me? I got 9 holes to hit. Call me if you need me. If Billy Napier is the coach, Silk, you seem like you're on board. Nick, your thoughts?
I'm on board with any coach. I'm gonna lie about anybody. So if they decide,
Tim Tebow,
except Dave Clawson.
Except Dave Clawson. That's what I'm just like. All right, y'all ain't even trying. Nah, PJ Fleck. They hired PJ Fleck. We riding, and then Clawson. I ain't feeling that either. But most of these coaches I'll lie about.
I'm picturing Silk with like those Viking horns, some kind of fur running up to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and pounding.
It's in my Amazon cart, just in case.
Just pounding on PJ Fleck's window. Get out of here!
Yeah. We got to do like what Tennessee did, man. Remember Tennessee?
Oh, with my Greg Schiano.
We got Schiano out of there.
The revolution will be televised.
Yeah.
That was the wildest coaching search in coaching search history.
The Greg Schiano, man.
So they didn't hire Greg Schiano because of what happened.
Damn it, like on Twitter, the Tennessee football account was like tweeting, like retweet for this coach, like for this coach.
Yeah.
What's going on? They were crowdsourcing. They were like, all right, how bad is this going to be? Let's ask our fans. Hey, y'all like this? Oh my God, no, they do not like this. Pull the contract. Eject.
I mean, they were talking to like Mike Leach.
Wild.
They were talking to Greg Schiano. They were talking to Mike Gundy. Bro. I mean, they had 71 people hired that before they all said no.
These universities pay millions of dollars for search firms.
The best part of Dan Mullen hire was all that shit happening.
They pay millions of dollars for search firms. Tennessee was like, yo, what if we just put a Twitter poll up? What if we saved a little cash and just asked our fans who they want to coach the team?
They just need to have their pulse on Twitter a little bit more, and then they need to pull in a group, right? Pull in Silk and Harrison, a couple other people. Just be like, hey, who do you guys want to hire? You guys are attuned. What do you guys think this contract goes for dollars wise, Nick?
This is, I don't want to say it's going to be cheap, but Billy's only making 2 right now. I'm not sure. I have to look into the buyout. I have it written down.
I think Billy's going to ask for some big bread, bro.
Yeah, I'm
like I just said,
like
I just said, everyone in the SEC is about to be playing Monopoly. They're the banker, and everyone they're playing with is blind. They're just robbing it. The money's fake. They're throwing it like Ja Rule's throwing jewelry. It doesn't matter. You can throw it at them. You can go into debt right now. Because you're going to make, I think, what's $300 million divided by 16? Because you're going to have 16 teams in there soon. That's enough to pay whatever buyout and his entire coaching salary, just from what ESPN's going to give you in a year for TV rights. So if he wants, it's going to be his first Power 5 job. So I don't know that you're not going to get a $7.5 million like Dan. I think you might get, you have to be competitive, so probably $6 million in that range. But you have to, and I think Scott Strickland will. I think he's been given the green light to spend because, like Andy said, you get 2 chances as an AD in the SEC to hire a football coach. If you're wrong, there's no 3 strikes. If you go to 0-2, you're out. I think he's been given the green light to spend, and Billy Napier's got to have a bunch of money to go and hire his assistants that he wants. I think that Florida will give him, that freedom.
Yeah, I think overall the bread of the staff got to go up big time. When you look around, like what the competitive staffs are getting paid, we're not close. And it's the $1 million coordinators. That's normal.
Yeah,
that ain't.
I think Florida paid.
Florida's gotten much better in that aspect.
Florida's didn't under Dan Mullen. They paid some coaches cheaply, I think, because they could, like Christian Robinson.
Because they could. Like, what is that? That's what I'm saying. We can't. We gotta go pay the top.
Well, no. I get it. I don't think it was. We don't have the money, therefore we need to be cheap. I think Florida was like, "Hey, we're just going to be cheap."
No, I'm not saying.
You know what I mean?
I'm not saying we're being cheap. I'm saying what we should be spending to compete with the best. We don't need to be paying a first time linebacker coach because he's the first time linebacker coach $90,000. That makes sense. But no, we don't need to be doing that. We need to be paying a linebacker coach some big bread. This is University of Florida. Like, none of that type of shit need to go down. We need to get the best coaches available for the job and pay appropriate money. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be more concentrated on that. There is some rumors about Napier asking for certain demands when he's questioned or interviewed for a job. So I think he's vetting the University of Florida and is gonna want some type of commitment on his end as well, as far as infrastructure and staff wise.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're coming into Florida at a really good time.
Right.
You're going to open that brand new facility, and Andy's right.
He's seen what it takes, man. He's seen what it takes. Clemson, the size of the staff. He know what he need, and I'm pretty sure he's making those type of demands at the University of Florida. So I'm expecting to see some big bread spent, Nick.
And what I think is like most frustrating, like when I hear that, is that like it doesn't really take that much more money to add 3, 4, 5 people to a recruiting staff. I mean, you're talking all in benefits, everything else, a couple $100,000. I mean, these guys aren't making, $100,000. So, I think if you spend, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, get some additional staff help, really put in a director of, player personnel and recruiting, operations that's super connected with the kids, and this is no slight to anybody that's there. And again, I also want to make this comment. I tweeted it yesterday. I don't feel bad for Dan Mullen. Like, it sucks to get fired. It's the first time that he's ever gotten fired in his career. He's going to make $12 million. The rest of the staff, all of them, I think, are going to end up making good money. I feel, and my heart goes out to those support staff, folks that are going to lose their job, to those that may not be able to get another job. I do feel for those people, but I do think that there's going to be a whole host of changes in every aspect of Gator football Gator football. I do think we have a great design team, and that's not just because I know Camps and some of the other folks on that team, but I think you add 5, 6, 7 people, and that pays dividends when it comes to either scouting, recruits, or just being available on visits and things of that nature.
Those are the people that I feel bad for. I don't feel bad for Dan Mullen. I don't feel bad for any of the coaches. It's cutthroat, but it can be very lucrative, and they know what they signed up for. I feel bad for the GAs that are, making hundreds of dollars a month, and I feel bad for the people that help out in the recruiting office that aren't making money, or the interns that are making, $14 an hour and working overtime and covering 3 different sports. And I feel bad for those people, because a lot of times when a head coach comes in, they get their entire infrastructure in, and that means taking some of those people that have done their social media, that have done their recruiting, that even the Deidre Churches and Lee Davises of the world who follow a coach and they're really just facilitating on campus visits and things like that. Like, those people typically lose their jobs when this stuff happens. I feel for those people, not the coaches making 8 figures for being bad at their job.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, to answer the question that we had earlier, I think that Billy.
Well said, Nick and Dan. Yeah, everybody. I want to be sensitive to everybody and their jobs and their families, and because families get relocated and all that stuff with this. So,
Oh yeah, I mean we're talking about dozens of people.
right.
Not beyond coaches.
Right.
You have GAs that are going to be moving. You have analysts that are going to be moving. You have staffers that you've never seen or that you've ever heard of that are the operational machine behind it. And I feel for those people. A lot of people get into the business knowing that they're going to have to move. But you don't know what the next guy that, might bring you along to his next opportunity is going to be, right? You don't know if Dan Mullen, who you've been with for 10 years as an admin type of person, maybe he's no longer a head coach, or maybe he's no longer in a position to hire somebody. And now you're out there trying to find it. And I know that this doesn't resonate in a tough, economy, a tough job market for everybody, but there are sacrificial, components of this that you do feel for their family, and their commitment to the University of Florida, doesn't go unnoticed either. I feel bad, like switching the topic back to how much money this next staff's going to make, but
no, yeah, I mean, this is, bro, this is big boy ball. This SEC, it means more. We got more. We got next. You say salary. What do you think they're gonna make, Dan?
I think you pay the next head coach, depending on who it is. Let's just say it's Billy Napier, because that's where it seems like everything's pointing. I say you pay him about 5.5. I think you put some escalators in there to get that number up. But like Nick said, that number jumps up. What is it? You said 300 million divided by 16, so that's almost 19 million. What is that? 18.75. My math's right. So that's a lot of money to offset what you're already making.
18.75 million.
Damn, the math is good. So I think that's a lot of money to be able to enhance a athletic department that's already in the theoretical black, though they spend like it's coming out of their ears, but that's another discussion.
The new coach is walking into a new facility next year. Anthony Richardson, supposedly. What do you think?
Don't even put that negativity into the universe.
What?
That's supposedly. Don't even put that negativity into the universe.
I mean, nothing for certain. We just got to speak as it is. He took his stuff out of his bio before Dan Mullen was fired. When he fired, he put things back in his bio, so that was a good sign. He was right along with us. What do you guys think about Nick Savage? A lot of players going to bat for Nick Savage, saying to keep him along with the next coaching hire.
Well, everyone talked about that athletic story. I know it was Feldman, and I'm not sure. I think it was 2 writers that wrote it. And it was all the anonymous SEC coaches. And I don't know if I said it at the time on the podcast, that the story was about a bunch of anonymous SEC coaches talking about how Florida's not physical, that they're small, this and that. And that may or may not be true, but every 13 SEC schools benefit from the perception that Florida is small and won't get you bigger and won't make you stronger. So it's not that it's a bad story or that it was in bad faith on the athletics part, but that's a narrative that every other school in the SEC benefits from and would love to go anonymously on record with a reporter to say, yeah, Florida stinks. Spence points it out. Nick Savage doesn't recruit. He's got to work with the guys that come to campus. And I think the strength coach you have to nail. They are around the team significantly more than any of the coaches all throughout the summer. I think, Florida will give the guys like 3 weeks off after the season's over, whether it's after FSU or after a bowl game. And then when they come back, it's just the strength coach. Like the coaches aren't around. So you've got to nail that coaching, that hire down. And I think it says a lot just about the kind of person Nick Savage is and his program. Because listen, the players don't like those workouts. They're probably cursing Nick Savage at 7:15 in the morning when they're done with a 2-hour workout. But to see the groundswell of support that the players had for him today, I think that says a lot about him as a person and him as, a guy that's created a program.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Nick Savage a lot. I don't know how he fits into, whoever the next coach is, but you definitely didn't see this swell of support for Jeff Dillman or for Mike Kent.
No, I was working out with Florida football players at Gainesville Health and Fitness.
Yeah.
When Kent was the strength and conditioning coordinator.
And I know, Mickey Mariotti, who was at Florida for a while, was very well respected. I know Nick Savage is a younger guy in the business. He's a young guy, period, right? I think he was the lead strength and conditioning coach at Florida when he was 28, 29 years old, right? Somewhere around there. So he's still an up and comer. He's a guy that's well respected in the business, even outside, talking to people that are unconnected to Florida or not connected to Florida. I don't think he's going to stay though, unless there's a connection, to Napier and to Savage. But that's usually the first person that gets named or gets hired, and that's usually a direct connection to what you're trying to build.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be mad at it, though. I think that Nick Savage has done a great job. Again, as Spence pointed out and Nick mentioned it, he didn't recruit the tweeners. He didn't recruit the DB linebacker hybrid. I mean, there's only so much he can do, right?
Yeah,
So,
I don't want to blame Nick Savage for anything. Like you said, he don't recruit, but I think that hire ultimately just is got to be made by the next guy. And that's just how that works. And I don't foresee that happening. Just to keep it a buck. Do you think Napier, if he gets a job, he poaches anybody off of the Georgia or the Bama staffs?
It's an interesting question, right? I mean, there's a guy like Dan Lanning who he coached with. I mean, I'm not saying that Florida's going to be able to pull Georgia's defensive coordinator when they're on their way to competing for a national championship, but there's a guy like him. Yeah,
I think you could. Remember when we were doing our defensive coordinator hot boards? I go, why would Dan Lanning come to a sinking ship? I know that it's never going to be your defense. If you're a defense, T-Rob, when he was the defensive coordinator at South Carolina, it's never going to be your defense if Will Muschamp's the head coach. That's his defense. It's Kirby Smart's defense. You get an opportunity for a fresh start to be a defensive coordinator at the University of Florida. Hey, Kirby, I'll see you on Halloween weekend next year.
He has relationships with those guys, right?
He sure does, yeah.
Another name would be Tosh Lupoy. I can't. He's with the Jags right now, I believe, with Urban and the Jags.
Yep.
Was on staff with Billy at Alabama. Ferocious recruiter.
Absolutely.
Like Napier. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys. It'll be interesting. I saw on Twitter, I don't know if it's true, so I'm going to preface that. I don't know if it's true. It's on Twitter, so it had to be true.
Like 17 followers.
Did Napier make like 8 assistant coaching changes recently? Like cleaned house? I shouldn't even brought it up because now we're gonna have dead air while we try to like look it up and
but he made that
5 new assistant coaches this season
after 11 wins.
The axe.
Yeah.
I like this guy.
But I also don't know. I don't want to speak as I'm trying to pull up the article here, and I have to go through Ad Central to figure it out.
You fired 5 assistants out of 11 wins, bro. You got that.
But I don't know if they were fired.
That's big silk energy. Big silk energy. Win 11 games, you got to go. I didn't like what you were doing
around here, man. We didn't win it all.
Yeah. We didn't win a national championship at ULL. Get out of here. Get out of my office.
How did they leave, Dan? Give us the facts. Nick, I can never trust Nick's facts.
Well, you can't. No, that's for sure. That's why they're called dandy facts. Yeah, I'll have to take a look. I mean, each one is so he hired a coach from FAU to coach offensive line. Let's see. This is dead air. We could talk a little bit more about it next year. We hired somebody from Louisiana Tech. We hired somebody from Tulane. So I don't know. I'd have to look in know more about. Some got poached, some got the chance to move up, but I'd have to look. A name that I heard connected to him, and I don't know what the connection is, and this is from a pretty good person, is Jim Knowles, who's the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. He's a guy that him and Billy Napier are connected. I don't know if he would join, him here at Florida, but I do know that that's a name to potentially look out for as well.
It might be my cousin.
Nah, looking at him and looking at you, Stoke, I don't think you're related. I could be wrong. Maybe because of play cousins.
No profile me,
What are you trying to say? Yeah.
No profile me, fam. That's my cousin, bro.
You guys are play cousins.
In the year 2021 of our Lord, you can't make that kind of judgment call there, Dan.
That's true. I don't know what Silk identifies as. So yeah, we can talk a little bit more about that. Should that be the decision? But yes, he did have 5 new coaches entering this team. Which again, I mean, regardless of if he fired them and then hired new ones, or if they got poached, or a variety, the fact that you brought in 5 new coaches and are 10-1. Is definitely a good thing, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But Florida can't go just to Tulane. They can't go to just FAU or Louisiana Tech, right? You're going to have to upgrade, who those targets are.
I think we're talking DC, but I think the biggest question mark for me is going to be if he's calling the plays. So I need to know who the OC is more important than the DC. So that's going to be the hire I watch out the gate, because I still need offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really feel his play calling.
I agree with that, and I think first time moving to a Power 5 job, I think you're going to have a lot on your plate as it is. I would like to see someone else call plays, but hey, Steve Spurrier says if calling plays got you the job, don't hand that right over.
All right.
No. I respect the GOAT and all that, but I think he needs an OC.
With all due respect, Sir Goat.
With all due respect, I mean, of course he's gonna have an OC, but I think he needs an OC to call plays.
You want an OC that's doing OCing, not an OC in name.
Yeah, let him CEO. I like I said before. I think that's where it's going, man. Kirby gave away his DC. He had some control issues where he wanted to control certain things. Nick had to do the same thing at a certain point.
Yeah,
you got to delegate. The game's big, man. It's like you're running a corporation.
Dabble did it. Robin did it.
Right.
Dave's doing it. I mean, you look at the top coaches in college football right now. They've all done it.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Whether it's offense or defense. And be able to coach up and be able to talk and work with your staff if you're too worried about whether you're going to be able to stop this next counter play or not. Let's give a shout out to our friends over at GameTimeSidekicks.com. Use promo code Stadium, 10% off. Fantastic holiday present, birthday present. Game Time Sidekicks vacuum sealed cups. Fantastic, fantastic product. Nick's been drinking out of one all night. We're burning the midnight oil here. But GameTimeSidekicks.com, over 350 brands, a variety of different styles, whether it be a tumbler, whether it's a workout shaker, tall, short, Yeti style cup. Visit GameTimeSidekicks.com, promo code Stadium and Gale. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do and subscribe. You'll see Nick holding those up.
Yeah, we pretty much look like NBC right now.
That's right. Florida does play Florida State on Saturday.
Nick, you're muted, bro.
I don't think we're pretty enough to be on QVC. I don't know if they would hire us to
speak for yourself, man.
Oh, feeling himself tonight.
I'm having a good beer day.
We shout out to the Jacksonville Gator Club that had us.
Yes.
I meet Dan and Silk in the hotel. Go to DAP Silk Up. Might as well put my whole hand into a jar of cocoa butter, Vaseline, whatever it was.
That's why I call his brother the moisturizer.
I just like slipped off of his hand. I'm like, what is that?
Hey, it was cold out, fam. You got to moisturize when it's cold out, man. Black don't crack unless it's really cold outside and you ain't got no lotion on. That's when black crack. So I got to lotion up, bro.
No, Ashley Larry.
Let me tell you, I got to visit, with Silk and Nick and Silk's buddy Justin, Jacksonville, which you guys know is one of my favorite cities in America. We had a great time. Shout out to the Jacksonville Gator Club and
Absolutely.
Lauren Vinoy, who is the secretary. We were able to do like a panel discussion for about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. And then we stuck around for another 20, 30 minutes. Shout out to Ryan, Chriselle, a couple others from the timeline. Gerald, that stopped by.
That's my man, Gerald.
Silk's biggest fan. But we appreciate everybody that came by, hung out, and listened to us chat for a bit. It was a great time.
Ryan coached me into taught me into Napier at the table.
He sure did.
Conch fritters. I was eating conch fritters, and he was kind of breaking it down while it was a good hire. I was like, okay, I like it. And then we lost, and it was showtime.
The conch fritters put you in a receptive mood. That was a finger licking meal for you. You were all about those fritters.
And shout out to them. Them conch fritters was busting. It was quite convenient.
And our waiter, what a salesman! He loved that place. He will go down with that establishment.
He would not let us not order food.
When we pulled up, Nick seen the place like, oh, this food's probably terrible.
Mudville Grill, great food, great drinks, great people. Check it out. Man. It looks like it hasn't been remodeled since I don't know, the Charlie Pell days, but
the conch fritters. Try the conch fritters. They're fire.
Very good. So speaking of things that are fire, Gators football program, which is not right now, does play FSU. What time's the game at, Nick? Noon?
Noon
o'clock. That's what
love it. Noon o'clock sharp.
Noon sharp.
Florida State. Greg Knox.
With head coach Greg Knox, with defensive coordinator
I got a hot take
Christian
for you.
Robinson, offensive coordinator Garrick McGee.
Oh my God, this is
for
goofy.
A battle of bowl eligibility. Nick has a hot take.
Take. Dan Mullen, for 4 years, has been telling us Greg Knox handles the running back rotation. My dog, Damian Pierce, senior day. Watch him get 15, 20 carries, and Greg Knox will look at you without saying a word and go, damn, Mullen lied. Damian Pierce is going to be the bell cow, the ball carrier on Saturday.
I like that take. I hope for that take.
Watch.
Because I saw Florida at the goal line again, running Malik Davis.
Bro, he's trying to get fired.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm serious, man. Like, think about everything we will ask him about. Like, this is real. I'm not even joking. Whatever issue it was, whatever like stat you point out, he will go out of his way to make sure that don't happen again.
No, you're not wrong.
No, seriously. It's crazy.
He doesn't want to be at Florida. You don't get paid to quit. You pay to get fired.
They were I think Andy said it right, like the recruiting thing. He was just like in his feelings. He was recruiting, but like he didn't want to talk about how terrible he was at recruiting. That's all people wanted to talk about.
Oh my God, bro.
Big game, rivalry week.
So
I got so many things. I don't want to like just harp on the old staff and just do that.
Yeah, no, I mean we've moved on, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the Gators are looking forward. They are favorites. They started as 10-point favorites, which was amongst the most surprising things I've ever seen in my life.
I might have fudged that one up back there. That might have been a week-old line.
It was not. It was a line that came out. It was an early line. That line quickly adjusted to 2. It went down to 1.5, and now it's back to Gators minus 2.5-point favorites. Money line is 130 for the Gators, plus one or minus 130 for the Gators, plus 110 for Florida State. And then the over-under is 58.5. So they've got this as a decent scoring game with the Gators winning. On a neutral field, Florida State is a 0.5-point favorite. in this game, so they think that the Gators might squeak one by. But I can see the Gators playing hard and beating Florida State, who is not very good. But I also see probably the more likely situation that FSU seems to be playing, and it seems to have a lot more to play for right now.
Question for you, more big picture. If Florida loses this game, they'll be 5-7, not bowl eligible, but there's a chance that you don't have enough teams to fill all the bowl games. Florida has a very high APR score, which Dan Mullen a couple of weeks ago told us the year that Mississippi State finished 6-7, they were able to get into a bowl game and won that bowl game because of their APR score. If you're Florida and you're Scott Strickland, do you accept that bowl bid? At that point, you would assume you've already got, a new coach in place. Do you accept the bowl bid?
Yes.
Huh?
Go ahead. We have different takes, so yeah.
I wouldn't, bro. Like, I mean, you keeping this staff around a little longer. I think, like, you gotta get your new guys in and start recruiting for the future. Like, when is this bowl game? Signing day is like early signing day is like now. Like, what are you doing?
Well, the guys coaching the team in the bowl game likely won't be recruiting the guys.
Right.
You'll be you'll have two football staffs at that point.
Yeah, I think, and the only reason I say yes is more for the players than anything.
Yes.
So I get your take completely. I understand. Like, you want to move on. You want to say, hey, this is done. What does Florida have to gain playing a game in Memphis or Shreveport? For as a school, nothing. But for the players,
to the Mayo joint now, bro.
Say what?
Say the Mayo joint.
We were not even Mayo joint eligible. I know.
Even,
I was looking forward to wearing the Mayo costume.
Not even good enough for Mayo Bowl.
You give this opportunity to the players, extra practices, extra opportunities to be around their teammates, a chance to travel, a chance to get some free stuff. This is for them. It doesn't hurt Florida, to play in this game. If they lose, the coaching staff's gone, right? If they win, hey, for some guys that are seniors are going to be moving on, transferring, whatever the case may be, they get to go out on a high note. These guys, for the most part, only have a finite number of opportunities to play organized football for the rest of their lives. So I say if you can, you do it. But I do get that one.
And then agree with everything that you said, Dan. And then I add on, well, then you get 19 practices where the other coaches are running it, that the new staff gets to sit and watch that team, the team they're inheriting, go through these bowl practices. And those might not be the most serious practices because you're banged up and you're beat up, but it gives the coaching staff to see it live rather than going back and watching it on film. I think that's something that can be an advantage for a new coaching staff as well. But my main thing would be for the players to get that bowl experience. And listen, it might not be, hanging out on South Beach for the Orange Bowl, but you still get a bowl gift. You get a bunch of opportunities to go do cool stuff wherever you are. They always do something cool with the Children's Hospital or some kind of charity locally. So fans might not be excited. Listen, it's not out of realm of possibility. We could be as a record label, family, and podcast could be in Nashville on December 28th. Music City.
I ain't gonna be there.
Unbelievable.
No. I got a question. I got a statement to make. I made a point on the timeline. Like we had some decommits, and I would like to get the decommits or what the recruits are saying. Also, if we kind of get some of that, I wouldn't get too caught up in the decommits right now. I think, as you can see, all the changes with coaches. A lot of coordinators are going to be changing. A lot of position coaches are going to be getting different jobs. There's going to be a lot of decommits and also the portal. I think a lot of players are going to be transferring. The game is different. Rosters get flipped fast. Recruiting changes fast. I'm not getting caught up in anybody. Nick Evers did come out and say that he was committed to the University of Florida and sticking around. Shout out to him and the Evers family. But anybody decommitting, I wouldn't get caught up in it right now. The right guy, if you get a recruiter like Napier, they'll come back in and flip this really quick.
I think this class is a wash. I think 22 is a wash. Like, it is what it is. It's not going to be good. You got to hit the portal.
He was already a wash.
I don't think it'll be
if
bad.
I come in, I'm
I don't
putting
think it'll
more
be bad
energy.
neither.
If I come in, I'm putting more energy and resources into the portal and the 23 kids than I am in the 2022 class.
Well, of course, but
I wouldn't even take that many more.
What do you mean? You
Save those spots for the portal.
Nick, you have to. You can't just top load. You can't just top load. I mean, you can still leave openings, and you're going to have transfer. You're going to have natural attrition, right?
Bruh, this is the 14th ranked class in the SEC. This class is a wash.
But it's not. Like, I think that it is now. I think that they're going to get a commitment tomorrow. I mean, yeah, they're a wash because they're losing.
A commitment tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they're going to get Chris McClellan, the defensive tackle, out of Oklahoma. So I think that you know a guy like Isaiah Bond who decommitted,
we ran it by Billy.
The right guy.
What's going on? We ran it by Billy.
They ran it by Greg Knox. They ran it by Florida.
Like, why do you take
head coach Greg Knox?
Why would you take a commitment right now?
Because it doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, it's all just a kid announcing anyway.
Oh, but I thought this class meant something, and you shouldn't give up on it.
No, I'm not saying it's just a weird time to take a commitment without.
I agree.
Staff is gone.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. But also, like, if this is this kid wanting to commit to the University of Florida, maybe he's doing it tomorrow for a special day. Maybe it's to honor somebody or whatever. Like, at the end of the day, like, if you don't take him, then like you don't take him. But right now, Florida's head coach is Greg Knox, and you have to recruit.
The kid. I like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, so a lot of decommitments. Obviously, we had a few weeks ago, Shamar James and Julian Humphrey, Isaiah Bond, the Gators' highest ranked recruit, announced that he's going to be decommitting. Nick Evers, like you said, Silk is not decommitting, but is keeping his options open. I think that was the word from a lot of them is, hey, I'm keeping my options open. Jalen Gibson said the same thing. There's a lot of wait and see, which is why I do think Florida made the decision when they did, early signing days in less than a month. I also think that there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of coaches that are going to move, and a lot of players aren't going to sign in December. I don't think this class is a wash. Do I think it's a top 20 class? Probably. And you think it finishes around 19, 18? But I don't think it's a wash, and you can't treat it like a wash. You still go and knock out the portal, but you can't treat this as a wash.
That's a crazy take by Nick again.
Well, I think this class finishing in the top 20 is a crazy take.
No, you said quit on it. That's a wild take.
You're not quitting on it because you're not quitting on the class because you're hitting the transfer portal to get kids in right now, but that doesn't go into that. Doesn't calculate that into recruiting rankings.
Yeah, but you can't just get a bunch of juniors and seniors in, right?
This class. Mel Tucker did, and he's winning. Oh yeah, well, it's a bad week for you to bring Mel Tucker.
We don't know how Mel Tucker is going to work out long term either, right? Transfer portal worked for us for a year or two as well.
I mean, Mel Tucker has had one good year, right? He did okay at Colorado. He had a bad season last year, and this season he's doing well. But like those quick fixes can't work either. I mean, you do have to put energy and effort into getting as best of a recruiting class as you can this year, and not just say it's a wash. I don't agree with that take. You can't just go to the transfer portal and hope it works out.
Well, but that's why I'm not on Scott Strickland's short list.
I know you weren't going to fire Dan Mullen this season. You said there was no way. I need to pull the audio. Spencer, pull the audio. I need to get all of Nick saying Dan Mullen's not getting fired this year. You guys ready to close out the show here?
Yeah. That's something else I wanted to ask y'all, but I can't remember.
Okay, go.
I can't remember, bro. I had a good question. It'll come.
One of the names that I wanted to ask that I was surprised didn't appear connected to UF at all, and I didn't hear Andy Staples really talk about it much, was Dave Aranda. He's a guy that, has seemingly turned Baylor around, was a hot shot defense coordinator at Wisconsin, goes to LSU, wins a national championship, gets his opportunity at Baylor, has a rough start, ends up turning around. It's a pretty good program. Surprised that there was never a connection or there's never listed for Florida.
I like his resume as well. I do not want him at LSU. I hope LSU gets like Matt Campbell or Bill O'Brien or some goofy shit like that.
New LSU coach PJ Fleck.
That'd be perfect.
You row the boat through the bayou.
New LSU coach Dan Mullen.
I don't think LSU's they just beat him with there's no way
They
they
sure
beat that
did.
draw.
But turn me up on October 15th, 2022. If that's
What do you
the
think
case.
Dan ends up at? That's what I was gonna ask y'all.
I was
Virginia Tech?
just about to say, what do you guys think he does?
Alabama's basement. Nick Saban's coaching rehab.
Nah, Nick don't want that mediocrity around him.
Oh, jeez.
Dan Mullen, Nick Saban, offensive coordinator.
I
I don't.
I was going to say Penn State, but I think they extend
James Franklin.
Franklin.
That's tough. I don't know where Dan Mullen ends up.
On his own
Virginia
private
Tech,
island,
right?
bro. He's rich.
Why not Virginia Tech? It's like the perfect job for him.
No, they got expectations there.
No, they don't.
And they got expectations there. They just fired a coach in the middle of the season.
He could do what Beamer did, man.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Virginia Tech's opening. I mean, Blacksburg's an interesting place. They had a rich history of defense because of Frank Beamer and Michael Vick. They had a few others, but there's going to be so many head coach openings this year. I think if Dan Mullen wants one, I think he can get one. I mean, it's not a great job.
I think he can get a head coaching job again.
No doubt. You know how easy it is to spin that the Florida Gators fan base is just nuts and crazy, and they got a guy that went to 3 New Year's Six Bowls out of there, and we just landed in a guy that just was fed up with his administration and the fans. How easy that is to spin. Imagine Tulane Silk out there.
I don't think he could. Tulane, yeah, of course. But I think Dan Mullen hurt himself with getting another big job with the way he treated the Florida job.
Yeah.
If a guy like Steve Spurrier is getting you out of there, and I mean, this is coaching circles. I don't think he gets another big job. I think he blew that opportunity at the University of Florida. He was giddy to get it for that opportunity to maybe go to the NFL, and it didn't work out.
He dropped the bag.
He's dropped the bag, and he could have easily and he dropped it for real, because he dropped it on some loyalty that didn't make sense to anybody. That I mean, if you want to go to the NFL and you worry about yourself getting to the NFL, bro, you got to fire guys that are not holding up their end of the bargain on your staff. If that's your end all be all goal, his end all be all goal was loyalty, not to get to the NFL, and loyalty cost him.
Oof. I mean, I asked Andy. I mean, Ed Orgeron had a very spectacular, fall from grace as well. I think a lot of people probably could have called that one, but from NFL overtures to fired in less than a year.
Mm-hmm. Bro, no one in the NFL wanted him.
No, I get that, but
that was a contract play.
Yeah, that was a wild turn. We always optimistic on it, but what do we got next? We out of here? I got an ad read.
We're out of here. We got
to the great folks. Manscaped. Oh man, perfect time of the year, man. Tracking planes. It's getting weird. About to get a new hire, so you might as well get them balls shaved. New coach, clean shave. Get the Lawnmower 4.0. Visit manscaped.com for all your man grooming needs. Use coupon code SG at checkout for 20% off and free shipping. It is holiday season. Black Friday is on the horizon.
Silk, I forgot to tell you, Manscaped is offering 25% and free shipping on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week.
I was about to say, man, no
25%
Black Friday
off
read?
everything. Don't even need to use our code. So just go there, use our code in the future, but 25% off. Friday, Saturday,
Damn,
Sunday.
they beat our code?
I beat our code just for these 3 days.
Gotcha.
You know what? Don't. Spend it and then buy again using our code. Appreciate you.
I don't think anybody gonna do that then.
Well, you gotta throw it out there. Hey, Gators basketball just won 80-60.
Blanco hooping out here a little bit. Hey, huh?
You love to hear it, Silk.
Yeah.
You love to hear it. Shout out to Harrison who's one of the White Buffalo boys. I think I saw that on Twitter.
Let's
No
talk
more
about that, boy.
White Buffalo boy. Like, what are we talking about here?
Oh,
White Buffalo
man.
boy.
The White Buffalo boy.
I don't know who tweeted that, but shout out
Last
to
time I
you.
seen him in White Buffalo, his glasses was fogging up in there, man.
Oh, man.
Shout out to Zika. Shout out to whoever the manager was that they were shouting out. And shout out to whoever spent $600 to get those guys to sing a song for 50 seconds.
That's their cameo?
Yeah.
That's their cameo price?
Yeah.
Oh, good for them. God bless them. God bless them.
All right, Nick.
I got sound
Are
of
you
the
going to play
week.
that song? Are you going to play the White Buffalo Boy song?
No. I was going to be petty,
Hmm.
and I had a song ready, but I'm switching it up because 'tis the season. We're going to close it out with Gary Allen, Watching Airplanes.
Oh, jeez. Great song, though.
Great song. It's a nice little
Gary
ditty,
Allen
nice
fan.
little jingle still.
Nice little jingle.
Nice little jingle.
It's me my first time hearing it for sure.
Hey, it's flight aware season, and we're watching airplanes with Gary Allen.
Tracking them planes, baby. Bring my coach on to Gainesville. Be sure y'all enjoy all the wet dressing this Thursday.
Mm-mm. No. Get your
It's
sweet potatoes.
Nick's giving.
Nick's Giving. Shout out to Nick's Giving. Shout out to me. Shout out to my humbleness.
Happy birthday, bro. Same corner, same time. I hope every year you get older, your takes get worse, my guy. I appreciate you.
That's a high bar. That's a high bar to reach. These are the Florida fan expectations that you just can't live up to, Silk. That's what's wrong.
Hey, man, I told you. Hey, all right, I'm not gonna.
It's my birthday week. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave you alone.
It's my birthday week. Leave me
Happy
alone.
birthday, fam.
See you, boys. Same time, same corner, same time.
Bro,
Coach.
what are you doing?
I know.
How long you been on this show?
Not long.
I don't
enough.
think he want this job. I think none of the fans want their jobs, man.
I got it as the top Dan. As the top Dan now, expectations have changed. You know,
Man, maybe there's something about being the top dog Dan in Gainesville. You just can't get there.
Too much pressure.
you just can't perform. I see what you're saying.
Same corner, same time, 2.5 hours. Great show, loaded. Appreciate you boys. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone that has made it to the 2 hour, 30-minute mark.
Go Gators. Let's lie, baby.
Go Gators.